Twixt it.
Twixed it.
Tweet.
Hello?
And also, can we have the monitor on full screen?
Yeah, we will in a second. Hold on.
No, but well, I mean, if somebody wants to get another laptop and
Yeah, watch the chat room would be nice. Does anyone have another laptop that want to watch the chat room?
I can go get mine. But we're actually going to try and be answering live training questions during the...
Sure, why not?
Oh, you're going to get questions on Twitter?
no on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Like mine's on my card. Do we have one more maybe than that?
There's one right on the table.
So I have mentioned you on Twitter. Oh, I don't have the stuff set up. Ham Radio Workbench.
Oh, the restroom again. You guys can...
Radio Workbench.
Should have drank a beer.
You need to do microphone setup.
Should have had a beer.
Episode 50 live stream.
So is that URL valid?
Smitty halibut/live should always be valid for everything I do that's live.
Just from the hell of it.
Live from Hamvention.
Live from Ham Nation.
Remember, we are streaming right now.
No way.
Yeah, we are.
We are?
Yes.
Hey, everybody. Sorry. Just kidding, Bob.
Live from Hamvention 2018.
The link I got was youtube.com/SmittyHalibut/live.
Correct.
All right. The tweet has occurred. Oh, I was supposed to get my laptop out.
Live from Hamvention. It's Saturday night. No.
Well, that's definitely copyrighted.
Yeah. You got a takedown notice before the live stream got started.
It's Ham Radio Workbench, episode 50.
I should have brought my
Call it a half century.
Guests tonight
5 decades.
are...
Now, with 5 decades of episodes.
5XXXXXX.
No, they didn't have
I think
that
it'd be-
size shirt today.
5X.
George.
I shouldn't be
Jeremy.
singing copyrighted material.
Geremy.
Actually, you know how we should do this?
Smitty.
Everybody go back to their hotel room. We'll just put a bunch of HTs on the table.
That's a great idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Brittany.
Spell it.
Brittany.
This is IJZ.
G-A-N-Y.
No, it's recorded, but I couldn't get it out.
Spell your name for me.
Y-O-U-R.
Gerald. G-E-R-A-L-D. Okay.
Oh,
G
man.
or J? G.
Because when G
This
is
battery
followed
is,
by a vowel, it makes it hard to just.
Can you hand me my laptop so I get my battery?
So
I
J
need
would
my
be-
laptop back.
Jelly, or not gel, but like gel, G-E-L?
Yeah.
Science and technology.
Wait.
Sure.
German?
Am I on Spring Hill Guest?
Jelly.
But it
J-E.
was
That's good.
euthanized.
Actually, we're going to use the conference network.
Not all.
Are you on the conference network?
Yes, I'm on conference
I'm
and
downloading the proxy script.
I paid $5 for the faster internet.
So how do I use
I'll
your-
submit
There
an
goes
expense
the
report.
budget.
Yeah,
That's on your dime.
That means
I'm totally submitting a ticket for that.
That's right.
I don't know if I can do it.
Chop, chop.
What's the conference
Get to it.
code, Brock?
Uh,
Conference code.
I didn't get a conference code, so maybe I'm not on conference
Honey,
network.
can you hand me my laptop back behind you, please?
Well, I was gonna let some.
Just let Kenneth in.
See what's something? See something I got that's
Reminder, we are streaming. On air.
So
We are
this
on
is a
the air.
laptop secondary battery external that is not to be sold independent of this backpack that HP sells. Micro Center apparently had people steal a lot of the backpacks that didn't take the batteries. So I picked this up for like $80 and it will recharge my laptop 2.5 times.
Nice.
Dang.
If you had a ThinkPad, you could just use for battery.
I
Not hard on ThinkPads or anything, but
Oh,
mine's
just saying.
batteries.
I'm just
Would
saying.
you like the pepper to go with that salt?
How about a little lemon juice? So is that the USB-C?
unfortunately, no. It's the last laptop they made that wasn't USB-C. Yes, I agree.
I don't talk to people that don't run USB-C laptops.
Like, literally the only USB-C thing I own is one USB-C USB cable from A that's in my field, like my recharge
So actually,
pack.
I think that's as large a screen as I can get it.
I can charge anyone else's
well,
phone.
can you flip it forward?
Oh, sure. Is that better?
Your hinge is really loud.
So here's the deal.
I've got HDMI right here. You can do it on the big screen.
Don't tempt us, buddy.
Yeah, well, you know.
That's probably not the worst idea you've had today.
Oh, so did
Challenge
you
accepted.
didn't get 6 little desktop microphone stands as well?
No. And just so you know,
Yeah.
the handling noise on those is real.
What do you mean?
Like
Like if I do this?
Yeah.
you can check. It's the moving of your hand on the metal. that is
Check.
the-
1, 2.
Ooh, on the,
Hey, Kenneth. Thank you.
sorry.
I will remind you all that we are live streaming right now. Anything you say or do will be viewed by the internet.
Can and will be used
Forever.
Oh,
Forever.
that's Jeff right there.
All right, hold
Well, I
on.
guess you can go pull them back later.
Wait, you paid the $4.95 just now.
I did.
In fact.
Oh, I gotta lean
By
forward.
the way, I haven't checked the levels on any of those yet.
Wow, audio.
So we're getting logged into the chat room.
Audio.
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 All right, so we're getting logged into the chat room here, folks. So
The
on
live stream chat
on
room?
the YouTubes and the Wi-Fi's.
Is that a chat room or is that comments?
It's the chat room.
Yeah, chat, there is an actual live chat
I
room
can
on
make it, I
YouTube
can
Live.
add a
Can
moderator.
we ASL it?
You want to ask them their age, their sex, and their location?
Oh, I thought you were like sign language.
Huh?
I didn't know what that meant.
Yes, you
I don't know which one you.
You're so young.
Hello, my name is Kenneth. I'm the second youngest person in this whole conference.
The next youngest was a 7-year-old Boy Scout.
Who killed it? Who killed it on the test session today?
All right, Sam. So I'm looking
I just
for.
felt so happy that I'm not the youngest anymore.
Well, you know, that's what I'm-
Did you make me a moderator? You probably couldn't have done that. given
Not
that
yet.
I'm not in.
I can do that now.
Art. Ooh, here it is. Ooh, there's 3 people watching.
I know, right?
Well, the two of the
I
laptops
know.
are.
See, there's one there. There's one there. There's one there. Hey, 3 people.
And the other is
Shit,
some
how do I
random
get out of that
person.
screen?
Just popped up in their.
F11?
Randomly dialing.
King Mark Smith.
Type something.
It said create a channel
Say-
to
say
join the
hello.
chat. How do I create a channel?
Type
You don't have a
ASL.
channel?
A/S.
It says create a channel. Oh, do I need
Oh,
to
hi. Oh, let me
You have
make
to have the slashes in there.
Oh, I'm logged in as the wrong person. Stand by.
Nice. Stand
add moderator.
No, he's logging in as the right person.
I know, I made Nick a moderator.
Oh, yeah. Nick, see, Nick is like, would actually pay attention and should be a moderator.
Yeah, but can he kick us off?
He's just a moderator, not, you know, root.
Admin.
Of YouTube?
Granted, none of us are that, but.
Ladies and gentlemen, we present you Exploding Lemur. KN6NK.
Yeah, that's right.
And by present, I mean welcome into the chat room. Thank you, Nick.
Is he already in the chat room, but he's
We
now
have
just a
4 people
moderator of the
watching.
chat?
I'm in the chat.
Okay, you have to type something.
I'm in there, so I'm one of the 4.
Yeah, so there's our
All right.
4 people in.
Oh, wait. If
There we
you were
go.
going to log, can you see the comments? Close. I don't know what all that
I don't
is.
know what all this
Get
is.
rid of that.
You are now a moderator.
How many people?
Why did I
does-
get?
This
Why
is
did
why
I
it
take
takes
my
4
hours?
hours.
I
If you were
I didn't know you do
Like,
this.
I was only planning to be here until 10. I was like, I'll go to bed at 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Jordan and I say every time we get ready to record.
Yeah,
an
really.
episode.
Dude, I just block it out till 1 a.m. I know what's coming, I lean into it.
Yeah, but I'm not planning on being here for the whole time.
Me
Nobody
neither.
ever does.
There we go,
Most
George.
people just sleeping in the
I will
hallway.
make you a moderator as well.
Can you go post this on Facebook?
Oh, I know.
Which?
We can
The
take
link to
naps
this.
and shifts.
Get the link to it.
Yeah, we'll rotate in.
I don't have like a URL.
Yeah, this is the
No.
all-night, late-night Ham Radio
I can't log into
It's
Facebook
for the
because
guy
I
that
don't
comes up to the
have
booth.
my,
I have
I
a
don't- I
4.5
changed my
hour
password
commute
something.
every day, and I
Okay.
love your
I can
podcast.
do something there.
We've gotten more than one of those.
Or
Well,
You want me to
this guy-
get it?
yeah, I've got 300,000 miles on my 2011
yeah,
pickup.
I can just say
I drive
this
between
is
4
Smitty.
different states for network stuff, and I love your guys' podcast.
That's all right.
I can turn it on, and I just know you guys will get me through 2 states.
I love Ramblin' John's comment on Twitter. He says, I see George's table is larger than Jeremy's.
It is true. But there's a certain amount of irony. Yet the width from where we're sitting is the same.
Oh, but I'm sitting on the end, you're like sitting me on the side.
You want me to get on the end? Would that make you
No,
feel better?
I maybe creeped out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little close.
I'm sending you the link, even though you didn't want me to.
Check,
Please
check,
send it
I
to
can
me.
check. What I say
On
is
my
sometimes
name
I keep
there,
getting levels, they're not checking the levels yet.
What's that?
Smitty, can you put Gerald /AE?
AE.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead and do that.
Absolutely, you can. Well, actually, what's everybody's call sign? George,
I don't
you
have
are
it.
KJ6VU.
What's a call sign?
Roger.
Yes.
Call letters.
KJ6VU.
What are your call letters?
Call letters.
Like-
What's your handle? Jeremy.
Firefox?
K.
Or no, sorry, Foxfire. Was
What-
my
who are
handle
you?
was Foxfire.
It was Foxfire?
KF7.
Okay,
JZ.
F7. I judge zombies.
Yes, so it was
Smitty,
Foxfire.
what's your call sign?
It's crazy.
Kenneth, you are W6KWO?
That is it.
W6.
Are you in there?
Something, something, mumble, 6
I'm
KWF.
closing this.
Go for it.
Saving
Brittany,
bandwidth.
you have a call sign? Okay. Gerald, remind me yours?
No.
Kilo Fox
That's why it's
5.
ridiculous that I'm on
Kilo
this.
Fox
And
5.
Norway United.
Say
Gotta
again.
make sure you
No,
And Norway
you
United.
need to provide the non-ham.
I
Juliet
told
November
Jeremy we didn't
uniform.
miss the opportunity
Jay.
instead of having the call sign on
Not
my
unique.
sleeve since I don't have one.
Got
See
it.
how my
And
syntax
well,
mix
I was gonna say no
might
call.
just not
This is
unique
Jeremy
Twitter handle?
KF7IJZ. Tested.
I
Not
planned it.
knowledgeable.
Got it.
Oh, that's not true.
KF7IJZ. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4,
I
3,
picked up a
2.
lot today.
Good. This is Jeremy KF7IJZ.
Where's that?
Jeremy KF7IJZ. All right.
Gerald,
Who's number
1, 2,
2?
3, 4, 5.
Grab that microphone.
I'm in the yellow. Is that too high?
No, you just don't want to get. You don't want to get in the
This is
red.
terrifying.
Is the microphone here? You talk. You talk.
This is terrifying.
Microphone's on.
No, you're not.
Grab the mic.
Or you're really quiet.
And you're just.
Oh, you're like busting red.
Hold on. You're number
Wait
2.
till I get
Talk.
there.
Brittany,
I am
talk.
talking.
Well, so count to like 10.
Yeah.
1, 2,
One.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Bah!
Yeah, it's working.
Yep. All right. That's good.
Bust it
I'm
up.
busting red.
Boston Red.
Busted
Busted
red.
Oh, you just busted red.
Wiki
Wiki here. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm. Now
So
I'm
come
not
on, let's
getting.
ride.
I'm not getting signal at all.
Around the corner.
There's 0. Uh-oh.
Oh, we got plenty of
Zero
uh-oh.
Single.
No,
Single.
you're not. You're
Audio.
Favorite thing to hear.
Audio.
Good project. Uh-oh.
Audio. All right, Brittany, can you go? Audio.
Audio.
Oh, yeah, you're way busting right. Go
Oh,
ahead.
man.
Do it again.
Do it again. Keep going. Just keep saying it.
Audio.
Keep going.
Audio.
A little bit more.
Audio.
All right. Audio. All right.
Nobody's ever said I'm quiet.
You're not next. Next is George.
Hey, yo, hello, 1, 2, 3, 4. Test, test, test. W1AW.
Keep going.
Newington, Connecticut.
Audio.
Audio.
Keep going. Oh, you
Audio.
busted red.
Yeah, it's
1,
me.
2.
Hello.
All right. Hello, radio. Can you?
Yeah, I can still, if you really want me to. We can talk over each other like we normally do.
Huh.
Except there's not a Skype delay to blame it on now.
I gave up on that a long time ago.
All right, Gerald, you're next.
You
don't need to-
You don't actually need to chew on it. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
You get it right there. It's like an H250.
You need that mic back.
I'm talking right now.
Oh, you're way high.
Yeah, and I'm just talking normal too. It's not. I'm not eating it like a lollipop.
Ice cream cone.
Talk.
Audio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6.
6,
Six.
7.
Keep going.
Give me another audio.
Diaz audio.
All right.
L.
All right, next, Smitty.
Kilo Romeo 6.
Holy
Zulu
cow.
Yankee. Yep, you're gonna have to turn me way down.
So these microphones are actually, so again, handling noise is really strong on those.
Okay.
So go ahead and keep talking.
Okay, check 1, 2. This is Smitty, and I tend to get loud and excited when I start talking about a thing, so I will try to get my loud voice going, because that's where you're going to have to set the levels, because otherwise, do we have any pads we can put in line with these mics? Because, you know, I get loud.
Just don't get loud.
Yep.
This is amateur radio.
How long have you known me?
There
Jeremy?
is
See.
nothing to get excited
It turns out Mark doesn't actually like to talk.
No, absolutely not. And I've only been here for 1 day, and I've already got my in a world. voice going on.
Go ahead, all right, do it again.
In a world where Ham Radio is never actually cool.
In a world where scooter batteries never die.
Oh, are there people technically?
No, it's just me and Nick.
Yes, it is.
Can he hear and understand us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can hear and understand us. Well, you can hear us, can't you?
Well, they picked up
Yeah, so, George,
So
just microphone's over there, George. I mean, this microphone.
how do you work this thing? So
I can already tell this will be a good
So
one.
this is gonna be a good
Shut
one.
up, Kenneth.
So
Hello, this
So-
is my name is Kenneth.
what? Pray continue.
Hello, my name is Kenneth, the Whiskey 6 Kilo Whiskey Foxtrot, and I get pretty excited as well. So I tend to speak loudly when I get really excited about
Really
things.
excited.
Totally excited.
Totally
So excited.
All right.
So Nick says he can understand everyone unless we all talk at once.
What?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, then this should be interesting.
Yeah,
Can you see? You might need to scoot a little closer to the table.
I am sitting exactly
All right.
right.
So all right.
Luckily, I cast a large shadow.
All right. So everybody, if you look at the red lights, bah, you'll see that.
Heyo.
If you
Wait,
start
what?
clipping the red lights, yell into your mic.
La
Yell into your mic.
ba.
Yeah. So I'm-
Give me a short count again, Brittany.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So anyway,
R.
pay attention to your light to see if you're clipping, if you're making your light blink.
Kidding. What number am I?
I don't yell into
Ba. I'm not one.
You're
Ha!
your left.
You're L.
Your L.
That's an L?
That's an L.
Am I left?
You're gonna need to mute that.
Heyo, 1, 2, 3.
Good idea.
Yeah.
1, 2.
I don't know, the 30-second revamp.
Check 1, 2.
If we sit there, wait, did you really just say that?
And I'm waiting on 30 seconds. No, the points are up there. Okay, so I'm on 4. All right, got it.
What's Kenneth on?
He's on 5.5.
Really?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I definitely.
You don't. No.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Because-
Yes,
No.
I would
Proximity
should.
effect. No.
You gotta eat
No.
the microphone.
No.
You don't. No.
Have you ever
About-
seen Tay sing?
You ever mic'd a drum set?
Yes, actually, I have.
Have you ever done a 4-hour podcast?
We have not, challenge accepted.
Jeremy, have you ever been to a Turkish prison?
Speak at a normal distance and try again, please.
Check 1, 2. Check
Okay.
1, 2. I tend to close mic on
Yeah,
things.
I'm seeing.
I don't.
Because it's the proper way.
It is not.
yeah.
You don't. No.
You
And
turn the
get
gain down, you bring the
get-
mic in.
You get proximity effect. Anyway.
Push my voice directly into
All
the
right.
microphone.
I got all 6 channels armed. Is there anybody else joined?
Yes.
Anybody we know?
Jeff.
Jeff.
Glass?
Glass?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Jeff Glass! Jeff Glass! Woo!
You'll be
Jeff,
here
Jeff
tomorrow,
Glass,
Jeff.
Glass.
You'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, he is.
Are we
He's already
recording
rolled
By
up.
the way, when's the last time you saw him? Like when you were in like 6th grade?
No,
I thought he was a childhood friend.
He is. Yes, I met him in 6th grade.
Okay.
But last time I saw him was like, I don't know, a few months ago when he and his fiance were in the Bay Area or something.
Okay, that's awesome.
This is not the Bay Area.
No, that's a table.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not
Anyway,
even a table in the Bay
I'm gonna
Area.
hit. I am gonna hit. I'm gonna hit record,
Okay.
and I'm gonna kick it off.
Okay.
Nobody.
Are
Don't
we
laugh
doing
during
live editing too? We're not gonna come back and edit this afterwards?
Like,
That all depends.
You've got one shot.
yeah, one shot.
One shot Smitty,
Yeah,
that's
one
what
shot. One.
Do not throw away your shot.
I am not gonna throw away my shot.
And some say do not miss your chance to go. Eminem.
Oh,
record.
Hamilton.
Go.
Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah. Hold on.
I missed the.
I need everybody to be.
On.
There's
on
only one
game
chance
days.
to get this. Yeah, this is for real, guys. Act like the professionals that we are.
You're paying people for this?
Well, you did pay me in dinner, so.
That's what, well.
Well, actually, no. Digital did.
Digital did.
Hey,
All right.
all right. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the 50th episode of your bi-weekly deep dive on making and technical topics of interest to radio amateurs, live from Beaver Creek, Ohio, 21.3 minutes north of Xenia, Ohio, home of the 2018 Hamvention. And boy, has this been a thing. If you're watching on the live stream, which we're live streaming,
Hi, live stream.
Hey.
you hear there's a lot of different voices, and we are joined by just a cadre of special guests tonight. first of all the way from California, he gets the first introduction because he drove here, is we have Mark Smith, KR6ZY, Smitty Halibut.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I drove out from California, spent the last 8 days on the road, saw a bunch of cool stuff on the way here, and made it to Xenia yesterday, and have been having a great time ever since.
You can close talk if you're going to talk that quietly.
Really? Is this what we're going to do now, Jeremy? Because I just got done being yelled at for 3 solid minutes anyway, go on. Finish introductions.
So next around the table, also all the way out from California, although he was sensible and flew, we have Kenneth, the godfather of APRS, Finnegan.
For the record, not actually the Godfather. And unfortunately, I took the red eye, so that intelligence doesn't seem to have quite been that great.
You haven't slept in 3 days.
Yeah. I haven't slept in 3 days, and I have seen absolutely nothing except for Atlanta, which not a good
Well,
area.
and
Oh, on the trip.
Yeah.
On the trip,
okay.
yes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Continuing around, the originator of Power Pole the World from our 2014 Field Day video, we have Gerald, KF5JNU.
Hello, Jeremy. It's good to be here.
There you go. And last and certainly not least, in a few words, we have an incredibly special guest, my wife, Mrs. IJZ, Brittany.
Hi.
They can't see you wave on the podcast.
Oh, okay. There?
No, you have to wave into the microphone.
Yeah.
If you go fast enough, it'll make it.
All right, I'm leaving.
So it has been an incredibly long day. In case you can't tell, we're all pretty slap happy. Our day started as a group at about 6:45. We had a quick breakfast here at the hotel. We hopped in a car. We drove to Xenia. We got in and we hit the ground running, finishing booth setup, getting product ready. And then starting at about 8:45, it was just a nonstop thrill-a-minute ride today.
Yes, it was.
George, how you doing?
I am exhausted, but mildly, and somewhat damp from the rain at that.
It wasn't that bad.
Oh, it was.
It was off and on.
But when it was on, it
You
was
guys
on.
call that rain.
Well, in California, we call it, thank God, it's raining.
Yeah, it's true.
Out here, it's like just another day.
So that explains why you're out there with the tarp trying to collect it.
We're taking it home. We're shipping that stuff back.
Yeah,
west.
we are. We're smuggling it back in Smitty's Prius.
That's right. It's going to be sloshing down the mountain on the way home.
So yeah, there's so many people here whose first time it is at Hamvention. So Kenneth and Smitty, their very first time at Hamvention. My wife's first time around in Hamvention or around this many hams in one room at the same time.
Oh, God. Oh,
Gerald, this is Gerald's first time not at Hamvention, but his first trip to Xenia.
Yes, Jeremy, that's correct.
This isn't a deposition.
It just feels like one.
So I would like to point out that we have nothing to talk about in particular except the events of today, and to celebrate that here we are 2 years later, where the idea for this podcast was hatched in a 2-bedroom hotel up the street, as George, Cale, and myself sat down to talk about what was not going to be more than a 6-episode mini-series, and we weren't even sure we could come up with 6 episodes.
That's right, and it turned into a
50 episode
This is the
miniseries.
50th episode. I mean, in all fairness, it's 50 numbered episodes, but it's
Right.
at least 100 episodes worth of content,
and then some.
and then some.
We could do 6 episodes now on just listing off all the next topics.
Yeah, 6 tonight.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we don't have to be back at Hamvention until like 7:30 or
Yeah,
so.
we're good.
We're good to go.
So I want to get everybody's take on things. I want to talk about the audience interaction we had today because it really never stopped. Both friends of the show, folks who had only recently discovered us, some folks who just discovered us on their way out here, other folks who went back and re-listened to episodes a couple of times on the way out here. But yeah, so George, let's start with you.
Well, the big challenge, I would say the first couple of years we did this, we had plenty of time to run around and get interviews. And we talked to a lot of people and kind of got the state of what's happening in a lot of aspects of amateur radio. This year, I think because the the number of people that came by to see us at the booth was so enormous. There was so many people showed up that it was hard to peel out. It was hard to actually go get interviews and make content and bring it back and share. So that was a bit of a challenge. So that was very gratifying that so many people came by to meet everybody, and not just you and me, but everybody else that's here, all the rest of you guys. And so that's really, that was really a kick. So I loved that, but it was hard to kind of get the content. So we got some good interviews, and we got some good content out
We
of
got some
FDIM.
forum presentations.
Yeah, actually, so I think one of the big highlights on Thursday night, we went back over to FDIM, a couple of us, and walked around in the vendor night. And so we got a chance to look at what some of the cool vendors were there. We talked to some of them, like the QRP Works guys that make little accessories for KX radios, so they have a little sidecar. And
That's Shell. correct?
that's Shell's company,
Yep.
right? Shell and Steve. And they're just great guys and really nice products. And so you could do CW from their little keyer thing from the keyboard. You can log on them. So they're great stuff. We got to see Hans Summers. Hans presented earlier at FDIM, and we were allowed to record that. And so that talk will be posted. That was an awesome talk. He's a great presenter, and his QCX kit was like the hit. So we were over there, and he was being mobbed. And Mark was kind enough to go like muscle his way to the front of the line and buy me a QCX kit.
Well, I'm kind of big.
So thanks, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we needed that.
I am the Brute Squad.
We needed that muscle to get up in the front of the line because so Hans was just, I think, going nuts with all the demand. So that was very cool. And we also got Jack Purdom, got his presentations on home brewing.
WATEE.
And Jack's presentation was great because it was kind of wide-ranging about tips and tricks on building, so that was awesome. So overall, I'd say Hamvention again this year is really great. But I think that really the treat for me was talking to so many people that came by the booth, and frankly having you guys there too, because it was fun to spend time with you all. And it's also interesting to see you guys talking to the listeners, and we can kind of sit back and have you guys be talking about stuff you're doing with our listeners. So that was really a treat, I think, for me.
I really enjoyed the fact that I actually had a few listeners come out specifically in search of me. Like I've talked on the show about the power system that I put in my car, and there were...
We haven't been recording. Hey, we're recording. It's not. I mean, it's not.
It's not recording.
Oh, look, now the light turned on.
Now we're an electric
Wonder.
I didn't know there was a light there.
All right, live stream. Live stream. Any of you guys who have this recorded, actually no, YouTube will have this recorded. So this is a case where we actually do have a backup recording.
No, we don't.
So that is a sneak peek exclusive preview.
That's the best.
Take one.
That's a really positive
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
Wait.
So Nick's comment is,
I mean, thank God we have that now.
yeah, thank God you noticed it now. Otherwise, you'll be doing this tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Jesus. I wanted to get out though when Mark was talking about getting to the front of the.
Hold on, we're recording now.
Wait, this isn't the.
Let's start the show over.
Yeah,
No, I want to do
No, do something
like
before
records,
record.
Yes.
Should
Before we
well,
go
I'm
official.
gonna stop.
You don't have to
recording.
stop. It's not that bad. I'd let you know.
Then this-
Well, because we're live streaming too.
No, that's, yeah,
Let's
so we're not that
just go.
bad.
Let's just go.
Yeah.
We are now like an hour behind schedule on this 3-hour-long podcast.
An hour and a half.
Almost there.
Hour and a half or behind schedule on this 4-hour-long podcast.
Give me my civic kid.
Just reach over.
Take it from the top, Chief.
Take it from the
How
top.
does that pinch it back in your wallet?
Okay, sorry.
Shutting up. I'm ready.
So, Jeremy, I have more blooper content now.
All right, no, for real.
For real.
Center, everybody center.
Secret bonus podcast just for the live stream from Jeff. Sneak preview from Anthony. You guys are all right.
All right, is it still recording? I just want to.
Yeah,
Double on. Double on.
Is the little tape wheel turning?
That's right.
I don't hear the whirring. All right, so here it goes.
Okay,
All
from
right.
the top.
Yep.
Welcome to the 50th episode of the Ham Radio Workbench podcast, your bi-weekly deep dive on making and technical topics of interest to the radio amateur. Tonight is a very special night because we are coming to you live from Xenia, Ohio, and we are joined by many special guests. First and foremost, only because he actually drove like 8 days to get here, is Mark Smitty, KR6ZY. Smitty Halibut. You're Mark Smith, not Mark Smitty. That's okay.
Either works. I respond to all of it.
Yes, you drove all the way here, out from San Luis Obispo,
In California, that is true.
and you saw all of the country between there and Ohio.
The entire stretch, not just what I could see from the freeway. It was really a challenge, but it was good. Yeah.
All right, next we have Kenneth Finnegan, also from California, who was a little more sensible in traveling, as in the fact that he flew, although you took a red eye.
Yeah, I'm really not feeling that sensible anymore.
I got to sleep every night on my way here.
I'm still not sure what day it is anymore.
Next, going around the circle here in the conference room of our hotel is Gerald, founder of the phrase "Power Pole the World" from our 2014 Field Day video. Gerald, KF5JNU.
Thank you, Gerald.
And then last and certainly not least is the most special of guests, my wife, Mrs. IJZ, Brittany, who is here because she loves me.
This is true.
And I think...
We haven't figured out why yet.
No.
But it's true that I love you.
So
I think it's best not to ask.
I know, right?
Third party witness, they have a very special relationship.
They do.
So we have a couple of absolute Hamvention newbies.
Yeah.
That's Mark and Kenneth and Brittany. Xenia is new for Gerald, and this is mine and George's second time back here in Xenia. And of course, I mean, this is I think maybe my fifth or sixth Hamvention. What about you?
About number 6 or 7 for me.
All right, well, let's be clear. This isn't just Brittany's first Hamvention. This is her first time experiencing a large group of hams.
Yes.
So
Yes.
trial by fire on that one.
Yes.
Indeed.
So our day started at about 6:45 for breakfast at the Hamvention at the fairgrounds, sometime around 7:45. Mad dash to get the booth ready for them opening in and letting in the masses around 9 o'clock. And man, it has been non-stop. Literally non-stop. There was no period during the day where there weren't people there talking to us about how much they enjoyed the podcast or asking what the boards were that we had or anything. And everybody around this table has been absolutely busy taking care of our customers. You know, I just got, good evening, George.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm good now that I know I'm not doing this alone.
I'm right here with you, believe it or not.
So clearly, obviously, the topic of tonight is the craziness that has been in the last week. This isn't really for people who like making or technical topics. This is people who have been with us either as recently as one episode or been with us from the very beginning. Because, of course, as you remember, we started, this idea came up 2 years ago in a hotel up the street. Me, you, and Kale, sitting around a bed, had a great idea for what was sure to be no more than a 6-episode miniseries.
Can you please explain the bed comment? Just so you don't get any
In a hotel room.
spurious comments here.
It was in a hotel room.
Yeah.
That
Not a suite.
No.
If it was a
No.
suite, you would have a
And
couch.
see,
yeah, no, it was just
So
a,
thank
it's a
you.
normal hotel room.
Thank
yeah,
you for
it was just a
clarifying.
normal, it was just a normal hotel room.
I'm on.
So, you know, like I had like the first, actually that was also when I got my very first DMR radio.
Yeah.
That was the year I got the MD380 and I took it out of the package and I'm like, it doesn't work.
49 radios later.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get one right. But anyway, no, we're going to spend the evening talking about everybody's experiences today, talk about some of the things about Hamvention we've experienced, especially what's nice is through some fresh eyes, talk about the response that we have gotten at the booth, and just take some time reminiscing, because it has been roughly 2 years since this journey started. And, 50 episodes, 100 episodes worth of content.
At least.
So George, why don't you paint a tableau?
Well, Jeremy, I could wax philosophical about Hamvention. So it all started for us on Thursday, actually, at FDIM. So FDIM, 4 Days in May, QRP event. We got a chance to get 2 great talks recorded. We got Hans Summers, who has the QCX QRP radio, an awesome radio. The audience loved the talk. It was great. he and Preston, who's the president of the QRP ARCI, were kind enough to let us record that and bring it to you guys, the listeners, to hear that talk. And we also got Jack Purdom, who is WATEE, and Jack did a great presentation about homebrew stuff and everything from parts to tools to how do you approach your homebrew problems and techniques, and so that was very inspiring as well. The rest of the FDIM talks were quite good. Those two in particular I thought were a very good fit for this audience, and so that was a treat. We also went back Thursday night to vendor night. A couple of us went back there, and we kind of walked around and we stopped and saw some good friends, Shell and Steve at QRP Works. They've got some new cool products. They have little sidecar boxes that connect to your Elecraft radio to do CW decode, display, keyboard interface. They've got a new lithium iron phosphate solar charge controller and some other stuff in the hopper. That was fun to see. Hans was there with the QCX transceiver, selling them like hotcakes. And Mark, you were kind enough to come by and say, hey, do you want one of those? Because you already got one.
I've already got a 40-meter one, yeah.
So you came by and said, hey, do you want one? And I said, yes, please buy me one. I have no cash. so Mark was kind of...
I had just been to the ATM.
Yeah, so he was ready. So he bought the transceiver kit for
Wait,
me.
linebackered his way through the crowd.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so you muscled your way to the front because Hans was like overloaded, and so you were a presence to be reckoned with.
Well, it had been a long day. I'm sure I was a little, fragrant, and people just kind of moved out of my way for it. Yeah.
So that was great. So I got
Right,
my
well,
kit.
let's be clear though. He brings back the kit and you go, oh, I also wanted the GPS receiver.
That's right. So I muscled my way up twice.
That's right. If only there was another thing I'd asked you to get.
So let's talk about that kit real quick.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I talked to Hans today during the day, which you were supposed to go talk to him as well, which we'll hopefully rectify tomorrow. So that radio is a 10 watt?
5 watts.
It's about 5 watts,
5
yeah.
watts. The kit itself is configurable for one of 6 bands. You build the radio, and ultimately it is a single band.
It is a single band, but you can swap what band it is at build time. Yeah.
Yeah, at build time. But
Yeah.
once you built it, that's kind of your bag. And what I didn't realize is that so from a receiver perspective, I mean, the amount of effort and engineering went into just have a really good quality receiver. I mean, this thing doesn't have
Yes.
DSP or anything, but just a really high quality front end.
Correct.
Was awesome. But I also didn't realize that all of the test equipment that you need to align the radio is built into
the radio. Yeah.
So I think the thing that really struck people in the presentation that Hans did was how much he thought through that design. So not just the core circuitry design, which he wanted to make a more modern radio. So part of his story is let's not design radios like we did in the 80s. Let's do a much more modern kind of design, a microcontroller control design using an Atmel chip, an Arduino basically, built into it, plus the built-in test equipment, plus a lot of really whizzy features like the keyers built in, and he even made a CW decoder, which ultimately didn't wind up in the code base, but that is kicking around. And so there's some really neat stuff that he's putting in as extra features in that. And by the way, that kit is $49. I mean, this is a
I
very
didn't
reasonable
realize
price.
it was only $49.
Yeah.
$49.
That's why they're flying off the shelves. I mean, he just
Yeah.
can't make enough.
It's a great kit.
Yeah, and he actually shared with me about like that he has sold thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4,600 was the number that I heard at the end of day Thursday, and I don't know how many he brought with him here. He's probably over 5,000 by now.
So one extra feature that also just stood out in my mind was not only is it a QRP CW transceiver, but it's a Whisper beacon transmitter also.
Yes, it is.
It has that built in.
So while you're at it, why not have a
Or
Whisper beacon?
Yeah, QRSS beacon or Whisper beacon. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
So this kit though, when you commit to a certain band, though, you really are committed. It's not
Yes.
like one of those nice modular.
Correct.
Okay, because I know that some kits had like the modular pluggable.
Yeah.
You could unplug it and plug in the 80-meter front end. But
So people actually asked him about that. There are 2 reasons that he did not do that. One is cost.
Yeah.
This particular board was designed for a Youths on the Air assembly kit thing that he was doing. He had a very tight budget for that. And making the pluggable modules would have added more parts,
Yeah.
more board area, a second board, all kinds of fun things like that. The second problem is that it is a Class E amplifier. I'm not going to go into the details of what Class E means here, but the details are that it's a I guess I will.
Tell us more, Mark.
Tell us more. It's a
So
resonant.
how'd you think about the lemonade today, guys?
It's a resonant circuit on the output of the amplifier, and that resonant circuit is very specific to the frequency that you're transmitting on. So that the amplifier itself is very specifically designed for a band. And those are not things that you can easily swap out.
They are, though, phenomenally efficient.
They are incredibly
They're pretty
efficient.
much like a Class C taken to the most extreme of efficiency, and so they are phenomenally efficient amplifiers. Like I work on ones that are 90, 95%,
Yeah.
97% efficient, which is just remarkable for an RF generator.
That's how he's able to get 5 watts out of a BS 170.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just an amazing design.
So I think one thing that really struck me about his discussion was, his whole premise was, let's not do things the way we used to do them.
Yeah.
Really bring this idea of QRP kit building and ham radio design in general into the modern era. So let's use modern integrated circuits. Let's use microcontrollers. Don't be afraid to code. Don't be afraid to add more features to the radio. And his presentation style is very friendly and encouraging. But if you're a kid or you're an old guy, don't be afraid of jumping in and playing with the code.
Yeah.
Don't be, so I think it's the right spirit of it. So a key thing in ham radio has got to be to keep moving forward and embracing, what's new. And he really has that in spades.
One thing that did disappoint me about his talk a little bit is that never once did he mention the mullet. He has a perfect opportunity. Let's shave the mullets off of our radios. Why are we still using radios designed in the 80s? Right? Just shave those mullets right off.
Because of MacGyver?
Ooh, that's. Well, you might have to. I think you're onto something. MacGyver a radio. That's kind of the idea you had for, go build something with stuff you buy from here.
Yeah. Which we actually got feedback from several people who was like, "That's a totally great idea." So we're going to see what we can do about it.
We got lots of ideas to
I
talk
have
about for next year.
I have another question. You mentioned you wanted the GPS receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Can you use the GPS receiver to discipline this kit, or did you have another use for it?
It was available, so I bought it. So Mark, why did I buy that then?
Why did you buy the GPS? So the GPS does 2 things. One, if you're using it as a whisper beacon, it provides the timestamp, so it knows when to start, when to stop.
Via NMEA, not
NMEA.
via PPS. Right?
Correct. Well, for the time, yes, but it does use the 1 pulse per second signal out of the GPS. It doesn't discipline the oscillator, but it calibrates it, and so it uses the PPS to figure out a correction factor for the crystal oscillator that feeds the SI5351.
Can you run an NTP server on it?
I don't know if you could fit an NTP server into 32K of flash. That would be a challenge.
Does it also decode whisper beacons?
No, it does not. That's actually a good question. I don't know how decoding a whisper takes a fair bit of CPU. I don't know that you'd be able to do that on a little 20 megahertz 328. If you were to try and build something like that out of a Cortex, especially like an M47 Cortex, which has a lot of DSP features built in, you could almost certainly do whisper decode in that. That would actually be kind of an interesting project.
Oh, so this is running on an AVR?
Yeah,
So
328.
Okay, yeah.
He never used he said Arduino-like. I don't think it actually has an Arduino bootloader. Because the bootloader takes like 2 of your 32K, and he's got to
circuit program.
wedge everything in there. So yeah, he's programming it directly.
But it'll be very familiar to anybody who's going to hack it because it's the Arduino IDE. He's using the Arduino compiler.
No, I don't think he is. That's what I'm saying.
I think so.
But I mean, even then, though.
Nerd fight.
Right.
I don't think this is meant to be a hack-on
We need
platform.
to figure
Which
that
is
out.
his next talk, kids, how to reverse engineer.
Reverse engineer the Atmel 328. How to undo the fuse settings.
The microchip, 32.
Oh yeah, sure.
So
anyway.
So now as we exit the rat hole, back to the discussion. so FDIM was great. It was a good turnout, and one of the big takeaways for me, just in general, but especially from FDIM, is a lot of times you talk to guys and they'll kvetch about like, oh, no one builds anything anymore because you just go buy a transceiver.
Man, there's a lot of people building stuff.
There's a ton.
Yeah.
There's more people building now than ever. So I think that's a big myth at this point.
Yeah, that's actually a topic I want to talk to you guys about next year. The one thing that I've learned this year, and I don't know if we want to bring it up now.
Jumping ahead.
Yeah,
We'll bring it up later.
Stay on schedule.
Okay.
We have a
Copy
schedule.
of-
Well, stay on target.
Stay on
Can't shake
target.
'em. Stay on target.
Just a few more seconds.
Oh, Porkins, no.
Wings destabilizing.
Okay, all right,
I just said
all
that
right,
actually
so-
opened the movie. I'm just
That's-
saying it
okay.
like you did. Yeah,
FDIM.
So
What is
and
that?
meanwhile, while you were at FDIM, you and I met up in the morning because you realized you'd shipped me all your recording gear.
Thank you for bringing it over.
Yeah, it's no problem. So
Speaking of mornings, one thing I want to point out is that you mentioned we met at 6:45 this morning.
yes,
That is 3:45 a.m. for the two folks who flew in from California.
Amen, brother.
So I want to make it very clear to our listeners how early this was.
I mean, you are correct.
Yeah.
But
But you
But I'm
did
not
also get to
arguing
go to
with
bed
anybody.
3 hours earlier than everyone else here.
yeah.
Here, yes.
Yeah.
So
Jet lag,
yeah.
yeah.
yes, time zones are hard.
Time zones
Now,
are hard.
The thing I will point out though is that I'm actually excited. We always joke because when we normally record on Friday night, George, you keep me up and I keep you hungry because I don't get to go to bed and you don't get to eat dinner.
That's right.
Now we're just both tired. So now you get to see what it's like doing the podcast from my perspective.
And I'm certainly not hungry.
Yeah.
No.
So much food.
No, but yeah, actually, we all just got back from a wonderful dinner with our friends at Digiland, who is also here. Which actually, going back to setup, so Thursday was setup. I got over there about 9 o'clock. I was actually the first person into the Inside Exhibits office. I felt really bad because the door was closed and I was like banging on it. There was a little sign that's like, if you let the door slam, the door will lock. And so I'm banging on it, and then someone taps me politely on the shoulder and says, they don't open for 3 more minutes. So, Barb, if you're listening, I apologize. Got in, got our packet. Everything was really quick and very efficient. And you could just tell on the grounds a combination of everybody who was there, who'd been there last year, just kind of knew where stuff was. And the folks who were serving as volunteers just had a much better idea of what they needed to do, what kind of support there was. Got the booth set up pretty quick. We are in building 3 at booth 3104. We are right across from Buddy Pole. So Bud and Chris actually got there about 10 o'clock. Bud actually stopped by and was really kind of interested in our boards, and we had a short little conversation. They've been pretty nice, awesome neighbors. But yeah, we got the booth set up. It's a 10 by 10 booth, nothing too special. We brought project boards, so we brought the 4-port antenna coax switch. We brought the new DC power strip. We brought from last year the Smarty load and the dummy load, and then some assorted components. The thing that I'll just share with everybody, because I commented last year that I was really surprised that that you didn't see the big booths put together. Like they were still struggling and rushing to get them done at the end of the day on Thursday last year. So I was actually surprised at how little booth prep there was overall, but folks came in and got everything together much quicker. A great example of this is that it felt like ICOM and HRO last year were both still working late into the night. HRO got done so early that I think they were gone. I'm going to speculate. I think it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, they packed up and they just left. Like they were. Like,
And when we got there, their stuff was still in carts and in packet. Like it wasn't set up at all. ICOM, same thing. Everything I saw just seemed to go smoother. One of the other things that was surprising is a lot of vendors that I had expected to see setting up on Thursday, like a good number of them, like Siglent didn't get here till this morning, Digilent didn't get here till this morning. AirSpy got there late last night, but several of the places that we would normally go, it was very much it was a trivial thing this year.
And as someone who's, I've exhibited now at Maker Faire for about 6 years, and I was kind of expecting the same experience here of the day before, all the booths kind of do a soft open, and they test all their live demos, and they practice their spiels on each other. So the day prior to everyone having public access, or like the morning of the, right before they let all the VIP and school kids in for Maker Faire, you kind of have this soft open that you can go around and you can experience the whole fair without all the crowds. But it was very strange coming here, and everyone was kind of propped up their stuff, pulled their stuff out of their boxes, and threw a tarp over it, and all right, we're set up.
So let me share something with you real quick. So I didn't call out the fact that Kenneth arrived, I think you landed around 10.
It's very, this was my first
9.
red-eye experience, and that was a little bit of a bad call. I took off from, after work, I got to the airport and took off about 10:30 p.m.
Pacific.
Wednesday.
Pacific.
Yeah.
Yes.
Landed in Atlanta 6 a.m. local time, then was there for an hour and a half, and then flew from there to Dayton. And so, it was like, on the clock 11 hours, which I think is only like 9 or 8 hours, but very little sleep on that. And so I've been confused all weekend.
So, something that confused me is, so George had come back after the 9 o'clock session with Hans. We're in the booth, like, packaging boards and stuff. We have a radio sitting on the table. And out of nowhere, I hear W6 KWF monitoring. And I look at George, I'm like, do you have the hotspot on? He's like, no. And I was like, who's KWF? And he looks at me, he's like, Kenneth?
Yes, remember guys, my call sign, there's a W6 at the beginning of it, despite Jeremy's problems. I remember what my call sign is.
Despite your Twitter handle.
Yes.
At least I still didn't put 2 and 2 together.
Got it. Okay.
So we met, Gerald, you got there a couple hours later.
Yeah, around 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Flew in early morning and got here around noon and drove in from Dayton.
Yep, so you came over, helped us finish setting up. George, you left to go get Jack's thing. And I'm going through this painfully detailed, there's really no, because it was pretty much not eventful. Nobody was stressed yesterday. Last year, people were stressed on Thursday.
Yeah, it was totally chill. It was,
Yeah.
Well, I think the people running the event, being at early on, last year was like the first time, and trying to put on an event for 28,000
Oh my
people
gosh.
with 500 volunteers in a new location is an absolute nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare if it's paid staff, professional paid staff, but this is all volunteers. So last year, even though not everything was perfect, it went pretty well. This year, I think they had it kind of knocked. I think they figured it out. I think they kind of had their act together, and things were just very smooth, as if they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, walking around the facility, I was just floored with you go out in the flea market and they had someone meticulously out there with marking paint sprayed off the booths, and then very legibly putting numbers on each booth. So everything was numbered.
So the funny thing is there's sort of this, I think, this ham community demand for Hamvention to be perfect in the new location. And it was always kind of like a disaster at the old location because it was such a less than ideal spot, right? So for some reason there is this unrealistic expectation for this site, but the Hamvention guys really stepped up, and I can't imagine how you put on such a thing. Especially with a big volunteer organization, those guys really knocked themselves out.
So I'm going to go so far as to say is that literally there has been no hiccups. There is more general seating out in the common areas than there was last year. There are more trash cans and more recycling bins. It has felt like a well-oiled machine. So that actually brings us to today. And the first person I'd like to, first of all, let's point out. So again, my wife Brittany is here,
Yes.
and it's not her first Ham Fest.
No.
She attended Frost Fest with us, the one down in Richmond.
Yes.
Yeah, she attended Frost
that
Fest.
sounds right.
Actually with Gerald and another friend of ours.
We went to a little ham fest on our anniversary.
On our anniversary, we drove to Shelby.
A very special relationship.
You are a saint.
Let's be clear about this. She's cashing this. So this is she's banking every event.
This is banking up.
Jeremy, you just don't know what you're in for yet. But
Yes,
I really enjoyed that anniversary.
yeah, we were in Asheville, North Carolina, and Kale was going to be at Shelby representing 360, and I was like, we don't technically have anything planned on Saturday, and it's only a 2-hour drive.
Technically planned. That's a good way of rationalizing that.
So yeah, anyway, so that was
Oh, you
your
didn't have to stand up.
that.
Sorry.
It's not about you, honey. His legs are.
Yeah, my back.
Okay.
So anyway, but this is the largest ham fest
Yes.
in the world. In the world.
So I've heard.
Yes.
In the world.
And so first of all,
In the
you didn't know
world.
anything about the boards that we had for
Nope.
sale, because we never had a chance to actually sit and talk about it before.
I mean, I saw you put them in bags, but.
Yes. So you went through boot camp this morning. The first thing I want to say is that sincerely, and I think everybody would agree, you were beyond phenomenal. I saw a side of you today that literally in our nearly 10 years of marriage I have never seen. You were warm. You were so nice and helpful and friendly.
He was actually friendly. It was very strange.
You didn't yell at anybody? No. But no. So, I mean, in all fairness, right, you are not the most outgoing of people.
No, this is true.
You don't like crowds.
I mean, I handle it actually better than you do, but.
Because well, to me, they're targets of opportunity. But the thing is, though, I mean, like, you didn't just stand
I am
there.
technically an introvert.
Yes, but you didn't just stand there and wait for people to come up and talk to you. You were barking people over.
Yeah.
Yes.
She wouldn't let someone just wander through the aisle. Like if they were going somewhere else, no, you're gonna come over here. You're gonna talk to us for a few minutes.
You make eye contact. You're on the
I
story
wasn't
now.
looking at my shoes.
So
Really, it wasn't just eye contact. She was reaching out to people that, you know, if they would glance over and show any even recognition of us being there, she
You
was
realize,
like,
like,
"Do you
no-
listen to Ham Radio Workbench?"
Well, like we were talking, it wasn't the awkward, like where you're just walking by and you really don't want to be involved. You weren't pushy about it. You were opening and welcoming, and people were like, "Oh yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say."
It wasn't just that I was the female voice in the crowd of.
I mean,
Well, you
in
got
all
Quicksilver
fairness-
to put up with, so.
But in you know, in contest conditions, you always have the YL do the talking.
Oh, heck yeah.
But no, I mean, you were fantastic. You learned the basics of things, and by listening to the rest of us who knew a little bit more, I mean, within an hour, you could give the pitch as good as anybody, and you were actually
And I was
selling it.
really good at then tapping on George's shoulder and going, I can't answer this question. Can you please come answer this?
Yeah, exactly. But the great thing was that the only questions I had to answer were like weird esoteric questions because you had the standard story down and understood what the stuff did, and that was great. And
Thank you.
And so that was just a phenomenal help.
So the question I have for you though is that you've never been around this critical mass of hams before.
Sure.
And obviously you didn't leave the booth that much except to grab something to eat but you didn't wander the fairgrounds. I mean, you were dedicated to the booth.
Pretty much.
So I mean, what were your impressions of Hamvention?
I mean, everybody was just incredibly friendly for the most part. They wanted information about what we were doing. Sorry, it's throwing me off that you're. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I had a great time. I had a good time talking to people. Actually, one of my favorite things was, so even though I'm not part of the podcast,
Well, you are now.
now I am, but before.
You're now nerd famous.
She just squeaked a little.
I did. It was really nice to have people come up and say, yeah, I listen all the time, and this is what I really like, and I love listening to George and Jeremy, and just hearing their stories, hearing stories about the stuff that they bought last year and what they did with it, and if they tweaked it, if they didn't tweak it, and then I would be like, I don't understand what you're telling me, but that sounds fantastic.
But they were excited, right?
They were excited, and
they
that
wanted
made
to
it-
share.
That made it easy. That made it easy to be excited back, right? That
Mhm.
makes it easy to sort of be like, this is something special. You know what? More people need to come and know about it, even if I don't understand all the technical aspects
Yeah.
of what's going on here. So
You can at least understand the social aspects
yes,
of it. Yeah.
absolutely. So it was a lot of fun.
So
As
do
much
you,
as standing on one's feet for
on concrete.
yeah.
Yeah.
We went to Walmart last night. We ran into Kenneth there. But the reason we went to Walmart was to go see if they had any of those foam, like interlocking garage pads. Because the folks at Buddy Pole brought those. And all we could find were the children's ones that had the alphabet letters cut up in. I almost bought them.
Quick reference during the day. Okay, let's see.
We had those, and then the kids tore them up. So, I mean, do you have anything that particular, like any stories or anybody who stopped by or anybody that you called over that particularly stood out for good reasons?
I mean, kind of the story that I was telling you before with the wait, what?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I am easily distracted. It's past my
Squirrel.
bedtime. The story I was kind of telling you before of the gentleman, I forget his name, who had bought one of the last year's boards and had worked on it, and he had this just great story. It was fun to listen to him, like, and hear what he had done. And we had a few people come over who were interested because they do stuff with their clubs, and you know, some of the stuff was going to be interesting to them for that. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm rambling at this point, so I'm gonna.
Then you fit right in.
2 more hours to go.
It's gonna be my bedtime before then. But no, so nothing stands out because everybody was fun to talk to. Everybody, like with people who were fans of the show, were just really expressive of that, and they loved how long it was. We joke about it.
No, but seriously, like so many people came up and said, "I love you guys because I drive across 4 states every week, and I know that if I put on the Ham Radio Workbench, you guys are with me for the whole 2.5, 3 hours." So, audience message received.
I've got 6 acres to mow.
I love that guy. Like he's like, I go out there every week
With a push mower.
Well, and there was the one guy who actually came by and said, I wouldn't be upset if you could add another hour because I usually can only get through about 3/4 of my lawn before or when the show's over.
Ham
So
Radio Workbench, the mowing podcast.
But the other thing, the last thing I just kind of wanted to say on this is probably what I enjoyed the most is we had people come up to the booth from the uppermost ages to 6?
The Cub Scouts that came
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
had been more than 8 years old.
Yeah. So I mean, and there was something there for all of them to be interested in, and that I've worked with law students, which isn't quite the same as working with much younger students, but that's still a fantastic, like seeing that spark of interest, seeing that like, cool, I want to learn about this and do this. I mean, that's the bee's knees. I mean, that's just fantastic. So I had a great time.
awesome. Well, I know you need to get to bed.
I do. That
Or-
was
or-
like my
or-
one prerequisite for coming on the trip was that I get some
that you
sleep
get some
tonight.
sleep. So thank you very much for hanging out. And anything you want, I mean, again, 2-year anniversary sort of ish, anything you want to say about how the podcast has impacted your life?
No, it's only funny. Sorry, I'm making a face at my husband because he has to partly do the podcast so late, so that way our children are most
Aren't on the
likely
podcast.
asleep at the time that the podcast comes on. So, you know, there's been a few Saturday mornings where I'm like a little grumpy that you have stayed up quite as late as you have,
Sorry about that.
hanging out
Not
with
sorry about
George.
that.
No, I actually am sorry about that.
But for the most part, it's been positive, and I'm, and this is gonna sound a little corny, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm super proud of you. This is amazing. I really like it.
Well, thank you. I'm proud of you. You rocked it today. Go get sleep because you're probably going to be the only one of us that has a chance of being convivial to other human beings tomorrow.
All right.
The
Well,
den mother to keep us all awake.
Yeah.
oh Lord. All right. Don't stay up too late, okay?
I won't if that is judged in the context of Pacific time. No, I won't be. I'll be in bed before midnight, Pacific time.
Pacific time.
All right.
All right, thanks, hon.
Bye, folks.
Okay. All right, so continuing around the table, who would like to go next?
Kenneth.
Yeah.
All right, Kenneth, you sound an awful lot like Smitty.
Funny.
Your voice just got a lot deeper.
Oh man.
So let me ask you this,
All right.
because you actually had, and you just shared with me, right? You had a lot of expectations set based on being at other conferences, specifically Maker Faire.
Well, I mean, I've experienced Maker Faire, and so I wouldn't say that set a lot of expectations for Hamvention for me. But it's hard for me not to compare and contrast the two of them.
Yes. So yesterday, I mean, again, you just said it. You had expected there to be a little bit more people are done, kind of socially interacting. And I'll be honest with you, when we were going to Hera, and George, you were a vendor at Hera much longer than I was. But I felt like when we were at Hera, that is kind of how, like, Thursday afternoon, you had a lot of people, like, sitting around having beverages, walking up and just chatting with each other. Like, it seemed like it was fairly low stress. And I don't know if vendors set up Open Tier on a Monday or not. Because, like, at Hera, I think it started the Sunday before Hamvention that you could arrive and set up. So, well, tell us about what you did.
Mm-hmm.
and what you thought.
Yeah, so I mean, so to walk around Thursday, I mean, it certainly did not at all feel like anyone was stressed out or was rushed or anything. Like walking around, like trying to experience the Maker Faire soft open that I was kind of expecting. Everyone was perfectly nice, and like we were up talking to one of the antenna booths, and like they were perfectly happy to stop and talk to us and give their sales pitch.
Try and sell us an antenna.
Yeah, like, they were really trying, and I was trying hard. Like,
Kenneth has been
yes.
trying to sell me an
By the way,
antenna.
did you get that antenna yet?
Not yet. Have you bought the NTP source?
No, but I'm not going to because it doesn't really do what I want.
Yeah,
it
that's
to.
a black market. So my game for the weekend, folks.
That's a recurring joke,
yes.
by the way.
So the game I've been playing is to see how much of other people's money I can get them to spend on stuff. So I have been the little devil on everyone's shoulders, walking around like, hey, Jeremy, you really want that $350 NTP server? It's a really slick NTP. All right.
How are you going to know what time it is?
Yeah, how are you going to know how long you haven't had an NTP server? Yeah. So, but yeah, so Thursday was just it was not like bad or a disappointment. It was just a little, that was the part that I kind of didn't expect. That being said, looking at Hamvention today, Friday, for when it was really open for real, I would say there were a few things about it that I really found surprising. And it was incredibly well run. The organizers, the security, the staff, the shuttle drivers, they were all very professional.
Yeah, agreed.
But kind of having been at other ham conferences like Pacificon in the East Bay, California. There's a real small one in the Central Coast that I've been to before that, I'm blanking on the name of it. But I just kind of extrapolated those up to, well, what if one of these was really big? And it really kind of met that expectation pretty well, right? Because I wouldn't say that there was, is there stuff, is it worth going to Hamvention versus the other ones? Yeah, it kind of is, because there's a ton of stuff here, right? And instead of there being a vendor hall that had 15 vendors in it, there were 5 vendor halls that were all jam-packed with vendors. But it was the same sorts of vendors that you see at the smaller conventions. And so in that aspect, it was, pretty spot on. As far as the experience as a conference goer, a lot of the same sorts of skills that are involved in getting yourself through a weekend at Maker Faire are valuable here. Pacing yourself, hydrating,
Good shoes.
good shoes,
Hydration is key.
forcing yourselves to take breaks even though it doesn't feel like it yet.
Yeah.
Because I saw a lot of other vendors start wilting and hitting the wall at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they were just going full bore. It's like I totally lost track of time, which I am mortified how badly I lost track of time.
Do you need an NTP server?
I need an NTP server. I missed the APRS forum.
Come all this way
To Hamvention?
Yes.
to Hamvention
Yes.
from California.
Yes.
Well, what did you write your master's thesis in?
Yeah, I did my master's thesis
In
on...
NTP servers.
No. I did my master's thesis on APRS and then missed the forum.
Well, I'm not blaming you there.
No.
It wasn't broadcasting its position on the automatic position recording system.
I have to... Thanks for the... And it's like I hate to blame it on like the red eye, but like just between the red eye and the conference and just the whole experience, I got so wrapped up in it. Like, it wasn't until like 12:30 I went, I wonder when that forum is. I'm like, oh, that was an hour and a half ago.
Wait, you weren't supposed to be part of it, were you?
No, I wasn't supposed to be
You
part
just
of it.
wanted to go
I just
to
wanted
it.
to go to it because like I've never actually met Bob. Right? I've been reading Bob Bernanga's stuff now for years, and I've been interacting with all of these people on mailing lists. But like I've only met maybe 6 of the APRS developers, right? Because like we're all online, and so it was just that was my big loss for the whole, like that is the big red mark on my whole weekend is I missed that forum, right? But Mark and I were out in the flea markets just going from booth to booth, digging through all, that certainly, that was a slightly different experience than like versus like the electronics flea markets I experienced in Silicon Valley, because the electronics flea market in the Bay Area, it obviously 30 years ago was a ham-centric electronics flea market. And there's still some amateur radio stuff left at that one, but I kind of really acclimated to California flea markets that really have more Cisco networking gear at it than actual radios.
It's become a Silicon Valley.
It's a Silicon Valley flea market. And so to go out there, and there was a whole booth, a whole glorious booth just dedicated to the R390 military radio, which if you've not seen one of these things, go on YouTube and find a video of the R390 HF radio, and with where someone's taken the lid off and is just scrolling the dial. It has like 8 tuned stages that are all gear cammed together, and so as you turn the front dial, all of these variable inductors are telescoping in and out of it, and it's just gorgeous. Like, it is a masterpiece of, you know, mil-spec mechanical engineering.
And practically a masterpiece of Watchworks.
Oh yeah, Watchworks is a very
steampunk
steampunk kind of radio.
Watchworks is the only way to
Yeah.
describe it. Yeah, steampunk. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Like, this thing, literally, like the guts of it for this the tuning stages, it must have 30, 40, 50 gears, easy, just to move all these tuned stages.
And you know, for its day, that was one of the most accurate, repeatable tuning mechanisms, because it's an inductive permeability tuned circuit that has trimmers in it that you can tweak. So the mechanical dial was actually very, very accurate for its day. It was amazing.
Yeah, and so, you know, it's like, do I have any interest in an R390? No. Am I really glad that I flew out here and don't have a car to fill on the way back? Absolutely. I'm ignoring Mark looking at me right now with his Prius.
I've got space in my car.
There you go.
Hard
to bring it out to California.
I have to fit it in my, you know, I can't buy that
The
thing.
NTP server will fit in your bag quite well.
Yeah, it would, yes, but see, all right. You know, so the flea market was great. Like, I'm out there, I think I managed to spend all of about $1.
2, because I needed to borrow one.
Oh yeah, he had to borrow $1 from me. But, like,
Yeah.
so did I actually buy anything big, or like I ended up I bought this really neat little lamp holder that has like it's got a variable brightness adjustment.
It's got an attenuator.
It's really cool.
It's really cool. We can't find any lamps for it, but
it's like, you know, so now I've got a mission, right? So I'm out looking for a bayonet light bulb to go. Right?
Did you get the text message I sent you?
I did get the
Okay,
so I
good.
saw that there was a booth that had the lamp I needed, but is now sold out. So
Yes.
the search continues.
A BA9 is what
Yeah.
I was looking for.
You know, but it's like, you know, just experiencing it and going out, and, you know, the vendors were friendly, the other tenants were friendly. Going back in, once I had kind of, you know, experienced the outside of it, and it started raining, so I decided this was the moment that I should come and leave you guys and help out in the booth, you know, because it was raining. You know, come in and kind of had to take a crash course on how to use a square, because I, you know, never sold stuff at.
Neither did we.
Okay, cool. So we were all kind of winging it on the square thing.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, just talking to people, and like even out in the flea market, I was having people stopping me and say, "Hey, like I loved your APRS podcast episode," right? And like that's great. Like I always love to have people come up and stop any of us, and like actually get to talk back to us, right? Because like we're sitting here talking to you guys for hours on end. Literally hours on end. No end, actually. But like getting you guys to come back and talk to us is just great. And so all day getting to talk to people and hearing what they're excited about and what we have really encouraged all of you to do, because that's the point of us being here, is just to, we're not showing you what we do to show off. We're showing you what we do to make it really clear that it's possible and that it's something that you can do as well, right? And so getting to see all that feedback today was great.
Yeah. I want to second that. That's one of my favorite things, is getting that feedback from people saying, "Hey, I saw you do a thing on the podcast, and it encouraged me to go off and try a thing and look at this cool thing that I did." And even if look at this cool thing I did is a blinky light, that still excites me. It just, yeah.
You know, there were a lot of people that came up today looking for you specifically because they wanted to talk to you about your portable battery setup in the back of your car.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to connect with any of them?
Yes, I connected with at least 3 separate people who were asking me about that. And one I had to explain Kirchhoff's current law to. He's like, yeah, and I know the name, but why is it that this, you know, when the battery's all full and the battery voltage and the power supply voltage are the same, why is it not pulling current from both of them? And So,
Which is a little hilarious because he's got a pad of paper in one hand. He turns to me, Kenneth, I need a pen. I'm like, all right, Mark's about to lay down some learning.
Let the
By the way,
learning begin.
I gotta tell you, as you're driving out and you're on the DMR talk group, and everybody's following you along in your trek. This was one of these.
That has been an absolute trip, man.
It was an unplanned special event, and to me, it reminded me of like
Smitty
these.
on the air.
Smitty in the air. It reminded me of like these worldwide balloon crossings.
Yeah.
Where we're tracking the balloon as it goes across the Pacific, and it's you driving across the country, and so that was a real hoot.
Yeah, if you've seen Spider-Man: Homecoming, a recent Marvel movie, it's the concept of the guy in the chair, right? So you've always got the person who's out like doing the mission, and they're on the radio talking to the people at the command center, the guy in the chair doing all of the research and looking at the schematics for the building and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I've had a couple of different guys in the chair for this trip. Kirk Smith, K6RCT, started out and helping me out. Was it? No relation. That's true. And then I may screw this up. N0MFT. I think I got the T wrong. But anyway,
It was a D or a T, and we said both in the booth. I don't remember which one was right.
Yeah, and so he was another person who helped us find a place for lunch. NK80 and I were driving on I-70 at about the same time. He was about like 15 miles behind me, and we happened to find this out while we were on the talk group. And we're like, let's stop for lunch. And then somebody else came on. He's like, well, here are some good barbecue places along your route. And I'm like, you guys are awesome. This is amazing.
Siri ain't got nothing on the
Siri ain't got nothing on 31075.
And for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, we are talking about that the Bayonet repeater group out in the Valley in California has a talk group, 31075, and it graciously lets us and our listeners hang out there. One thing that's actually interesting, so Charles that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So he literally when he popped up on the talk group the day before he left, he literally just got in his radio and literally just punched in a frequency in a talk group. It was in any tone. And we were his first DMR contacts. I'm guessing he probably actually hasn't programmed anything else into the radio, because why would you? I am now starting to think that the DMR radios with 256 channels only actually are way too many.
Yeah.
You just need the one.
You only need one.
Well, you might need a few different frequencies, right? You might need your local.
Yeah, that's true, because I've got my hotspot and George's
Yeah,
hotspot,
right.
so I do need at least two channels.
But everybody was kind of like ground support, and
Oh,
you were
yeah,
like
it was
the
great.
mission.
It was
and,
great.
It was really funny because I'm like every morning driving to work, and I hear you on, and you're in another state.
Yeah.
And then there's some issue with the charger.
Oh,
or
gosh.
there's one logistical issue or another, and like everybody's circling the wagons, like helping Mark on as if you're on the mission to Mars.
I know, right? I love Apollo 13 on my way out. Like, oh crap, the command module just exploded. I don't have a charger for my HD.
Actually, why don't we talk about that, because we all learned a very valuable lesson about battery eliminators.
Oh my gosh.
About battery eliminators and assumptions.
And assumptions. You know what they say about assumptions? They make an ass out of you and umption. So apparently, the battery eliminator for the Anytone 868 radio, the DMR dual band radio that K6RCT recommended on this podcast, and that a lot of people are buying. You can buy a battery eliminator. They're like $19, and it's got a cigarette lighter plug on one side, and it's got the little plastic piece that looks like a battery. It fits like a battery that plugs into the back where the battery goes on the radio, and it's got a little coiled cord that connects the two. Well, I got one of these battery eliminators, and I modified it specially to kind of fit on the end of a ball joint, on the end of like a flex thing that comes up from where the seat attaches to the car, so that the radio is mounted right next to my right thigh in my car, kind of in a convenient spot to hit, so that I don't have to hold it. It's not like buried down underneath a seat or anything like that, right? It's up and it's available and visible and safe for me to use while I'm driving. And I didn't want to plug it into the cigarette lighter adapter on my car, because as soon as I turned my car off, it would lose power. And I wanted it to be running off of the battery in the back. And so I ran a power cord from the battery up to the front of the car. And everyone say it with me, Power pull the world. Power pull the world. So I cut off the cigarette lighter adapter and put power poles on the wire and connected it up. And I turned it on and it powered on, great, no problem. This was the night before I left.
You should always
Always
do electrical
That is always the time to
installations
be working on
The
your
night
electronics.
before you leave, yes.
when you're tired.
Tired, this
And
was
no
exactly
chance
the
to
right
replace
time.
anything.
No,
Everything's
yeah.
closed.
Yeah.
And the parts that you cut off, you leave at home.
Yeah.
Yes, because obviously I don't need the cigarette lighter adapter. Okay, so the punchline here is that I had assumed that the cigarette lighter plug was just a passive device, and that it took 12 volts, and it was 12 volts that went up the wire to the battery eliminator, and that any voltage regulation to bring it from 12 volts, which is actually 14.6 in my case, down to the battery voltage, which is 7.2, I had assumed that all of that electronics would be in the battery case itself. You know, the part that's custom to this particular use case.
The big open area spot.
Exactly.
That's not, yeah.
As opposed to the cigarette lighter plug, which is a generic product off the shelf you can get from any of a bajillion manufacturers. Apparently this assumption is wrong, because I got this all hooked up and I turned on the radio, and the radio turned on just fine. But as soon as I tried to key up, I would not hear any audio, because normally when you key up, you hear the little boop, it tells you that you're transmitting, you capture the receiver, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't hear that boop, but I would hear the pop of the audio amplifier turning on. Right, you know, there's always that little click or pop. I could hear the pops and clicks, but I would not hear the beep that was generated locally on the radio. Similarly, I would not hear any audio receiving from the talk group. The audio amplifier appeared to do nothing. How in the heck is using a battery eliminator going to cause your audio amp, of all things, to not work? I'm like, what in the what? This makes no sense. Consequently, anyway, because I didn't realize this until it was almost too late, I forgot to bring the battery charger, because I was planning on using the battery eliminator for the entire trip. So the battery charger never made it into my kit. Turns out that that male plug, cigarette lighter plug, had the voltage regulation circuit in it. And I left the plug that I cut off at home. So,
And it turns out, apparently, the Anytone can survive 14
volts
volts onto the battery terminals.
14
Multiple days.
Yes, it's a 2-cell battery that you get with it, but apparently it can handle 4 cells. And so apparently I was putting 14.6 volts directly across the audio amp, and it just like,
Nope.
it's a big old bottle of nope sauce on that one.
So the first miracle is that it didn't blow up.
Exactly, nothing went poof.
So that's amazing. The
Yeah.
second miracle is the battery lasted you like 4 days or something.
4 days of active use, yeah. It was 5 days before I could get the battery charger for it. But one of those days I knew I was going to be up in the Colorado Rockies where there wasn't going to be any cell coverage. So I just turned everything off that day. But yeah, so the 3,300 milliamp hour battery lasted me 4 days of pretty active use, which is in and of itself a miracle. Yeah. So anyway, to make a long story even longer, I ended up buying a drop-in charger and 2 new battery eliminators. And I bought them from Associated Radio in Overland Park, Kansas. Thank you, Associated Radio, if you're listening. Had them shipped to my cousin in Lawrence, Kansas, who I was going to be spending the night with. That was already planned. And they could get it there in time for me to show up. So I got to my cousin's house, and first thing, put the radio in the charger, get the radio battery back up and running. Second thing I did was take apart the cigarette lighter adapter, the plug on the new one that I bought, and I looked inside, and there was the active circuitry. I'm like, son of a gun. Anyway.
And then the third thing he did was he said hello to his cousin.
But they know he's a ham, so they expected this kind of behavior.
Anyway, luckily my cousin also has a shop, and so I was able to do the same modifications, physical modifications, to the second battery eliminator I bought to mount it on the end of that ball joint that I talked about. So I still was able to do that. So anyway, the rest of the trip I've got this radio mounted in the thing with the battery eliminator, and it's all working great now.
So that's a great story. I mean,
Yeah.
and everybody was following along. There must have been 5 people, 10 people
Working
who
on
were
figuring
like
out.
trying. Like as soon as you said I need to find and people were like, a charger, a battery, another battery eliminator. And people were like searching for ham radio stores in the Midwest, trying to figure out where could you go. And
Kirk Smith was my guy in the chair. He's the one who pointed me toward Associated Radio while I was in St. George, Utah is where I was when I placed that order. So good times. And it's another case of the wonderful community that you guys have created on 31075.
And I'm kind of sorry I missed it all, because at this point I didn't even own any DMR gear yet.
Yeah.
So you fixed that problem.
I did, right? Well, so the funny part is for event support where we're using commercial radio, we use DMR and we use 7550 Motorola radios. So I've used DMR quite a bit. It's just that they're always commercial rental radios that I have to turn in at the end of the weekend. So I've never owned my own DMR gear. And so
didn't you? I could swear you dropped one in a porta potty.
Yeah, it was strange that one event that one of the $1,000 radios
just disappeared.
Yeah, it just disappeared.
You don't want to take that back.
No. Anyways, so it was literally Tuesday, and so I had borrowed an MD380 from one of my friends, and he said, yeah, and it uses the same programming cable as the Baofeng, and gave it to me. Turns out it does not use the same programming cable as the Baofeng.
No,
it uses a programming cable that looks just like the Baofeng's.
One has electronics, one has the UART built in, and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, so the Baofeng programming cable has the UART chip, which is usually a prolific chip, built into the USB cable itself. So it's bringing out TTL UART on the pins into the radio. The MD380 uses the same connector and the cable looks identical, but is actually a totally unintelligent cable that just runs the USB data lines straight into the radio. So the radio is what enumerates when you plug it in.
I'm sure a
Novel concept.
Yeah, I'm sure a 2.5 millimeter TRS plug is totally balanced, high-speed digital safe.
Totally. Yeah. And so I'm looking at this, I'm like, I probably have all the parts in my bench. I probably could actually build this programming cable, but there's a lot of unknowns here. And but with all the other events I've been working the last several weeks, I've been home 4 days, and so I just didn't have the energy for it. I'm like, all right, I have an Amazon Prime account. I'll Amazon Prime a programming cable. So I go on Amazon. Turns out you can't Amazon Prime a programming cable. You can buy the programming cables for the MD380 for about $5 or $6 and 2 weeks shipping. You can Amazon Prime the whole MD380. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, it was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point anyways. So I Amazon Primed it. It got there Tuesday. I pulled it out of the box. I've loaded the NordCal MD380 code plug on it from some random website. Immediately regretted that because all the labels on it are completely indecipherable, and I can't hit any of the repeaters for my apartment. So I opened up the code plug program, which I can understand why a lot of hams have some difficulty with the CPS for DMR stuff. I would admit, coming from doing a lot of analog CPS, there was still a little bit of a learning curve for me. As I had to quite figure out what the contacts were, and half the checkboxes still mean nothing to me. But by some dumb luck, I managed to, on the first shot, dial in the Ham Radio Workbench hotspot on my radio, and showed up and keyed it up, and you guys heard me. So apparently I managed to muddle my way through it for one channel, and that's the only channel I'm ever going to use, right? And so once I was here, I actually also then went over to, I guess it was the HRO booth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and so the thing is I had scrolled through all the repeaters and the code plug that were anywhere close to my apartment. It didn't seem like I was able to hit any of them. And so this DMR radio is not going to do any good, and I absolutely won't be on 31075 now I own one. And so I went and I bought a Zoom spot. And so I now have a hotspot and an MD380. So it seems like I'm now going to be on 31075.
One of us!
So actually, I want to take a moment since you brought up the MD380. So for those of you who aren't aware, the venerable MD380, which is probably the biggest gateway drug in the amateur radio, it's being superseded by the VHF UHF dual band version of the radio. And I only bring this up because the general consensus seems to be that you will see fewer true MD380s. So the MD380 really hit the scene 3 Hamventions ago. That's when I got mine. they were regularly running between like $125, $150 prior to Hamvention. On the first day of Hamvention, they were selling for like $110. And then somebody dropped them down to $89. And then all of a sudden, everybody at Hamvention had an MD380. So the next year, they were down, which was last year, they were down to $69 a piece. So I think though, because of the inevitable possible sidelining of the UHF only version, the price of the MD380 was actually up this year to $75 on average. So I just would like to point out, I think the MD380 is a bellwether of Hamvention activity.
Well, certainly, I talked to dozens of people that came by the booth that just got their DMR radio, just got their hotspot set up, just got on the talk group, and I think
Just in time to man in the chair for me on the way here.
well, yes, to ride along, and so it's really fun to see when there's something new and hot that a lot of people gravitate towards, and I haven't really seen anything quite like this. I think the QRP kit thing was kind of a phenomenon like this.
Mhm.
I think the DMR thing is a phenomenon because I've been playing with D-Star for half a dozen years, and it's really cool, but the radios are relatively expensive, and so that's just a barrier for, not because people don't necessarily want to spend $300 on a radio, though some don't, many don't, but if you're not sure, it's a lot of money to spend on something you're not sure about. But for $90, you're like, sure, $90, I'm in, no sweat.
Yep.
And also once you get into it at $90, if you lose it, no big deal. Like Stuart came by.
KV1HQS,
Exactly.
winner of Napoda,
Thank you.
friend
Yes.
of the show,
Friend of the show. So
super tall guy.
That's right. And just published his book on
Oh yes,
portable
brand new
field
book
operating.
on portable field operation, published by the League. He's actually here with the League signing his book.
So Stuart comes by, and he's kind of a dyed-in-the-wool soda, dyed-in-the-wool soda operator kind of guy. And he's like, maybe I need to do this DMR thing. So we spent time on it. He's like, yeah, I got to do this. So, and the typical question is, what do I go buy? And it's like buy an HT and buy a hotspot. And for the MD80 and that hotspot, that pair for a couple $100,
Yeah, $220.
that's what you need. You could spend more, but there's not that much different really between that and a much more expensive setup. So it really, I think that contributes to just this momentum of people of different interests wanting to hop into this, not just general repeater interest.
So I was going to say, Gerald, I think you've been saying, but you are definitely the most experienced DMR operator in our group here.
Yeah, that's not saying that I'm super experienced.
I would have said you're the most experienced. We're all amateurs.
You really threw me off there, Jeremy. I had exactly where I was going with the segue from George.
Sorry.
Well, it's all right, because I'll talk about you then. So instead of an MD380 this year, what did you buy?
So
An
actually,
NTP server.
no, I did buy a GPS discipline oscillator, but I did not buy the NTP server. So, my impulse purchase this year was so right before Hamvention opened, George went over to the HRO booth, and they were open and ready for business. And so George picked up several of the Zoom Spot hotspots, which again, we said this before, then we had to stop saying it because the future was uncertain, but the MD380 plus a Zoom Spot hotspot is the most fun you can have in amateur radio for the least amount of money.
It is one. Well, it is one way to have fun, right? Because I'm always very emphatic that there is a bajillion corners. in
I'm
amateur radio,
talking
so.
about the dollar to
Bang for the buck.
bang for the buck of getting started, going out and buying something.
I refuse that. I refuse that sweeping statement.
It is something.
It is definitely a good way to have a lot of fun.
By the way, welcome to DMR episode 4.
There's a small learning curve that goes along with it, but once you've conquered that learning curve, now you have worldwide access. You have the local access to your local UHF repeaters or analog or DMR. You still have your point-to-point. You still have all the same stuff that as hams we enjoy, but you've stepped it up into the century. And now, like with the Baynet group, instead of sitting around and listening to dead air on my local repeater, I can do that, and then I can just turn the channel selector over and talk to the guys out in California. But what I was talking about was specifically the little orange radio that you spot?
Yeah, so while we were there were two guys standing in the HRO booth in Hytera shirts, and that's Hytera with a hotel instead of a Hytera with a tango. And I actually bought my first Hytera radio last year at Hamvention. Like that was one of my big keynote purchases. Was I bought a PD682. So Hytera is a Chinese manufacturer of commercial DMR gear, and it's really good stuff. And it's a good in between Motorola and something lower end like a Hytera, as far as you get a very high class receiver with a lot of capabilities. But you have, it's relatively affordable, and Hytera is kind of dipping their toe in the amateur market. So I noticed the other day, somebody had said that HRO is carrying Hytera, so we went to their website to search for Hytera, and yes, they are selling commercial PD782s, but we were surprised because the Hytera guys were, check out our new radio. Well, your new radio. And this is something they've been promising for a while, but they now have a new Hytera quality radio that is specifically an amateur piece of equipment. So what do I mean by that? I mean by that, so the radio is the the AR for amateur radio 482. This radio is thicker. Actually, from a design perspective, it's somewhere between a 782, which is kind of a large, rugged, like heavy-duty plastic over metal frame brick, whereas the 682 is a slimmer, with the exposed like magnesium or whatever frame that it's made out of. This radio is physically in between the two as far as size goes. It is that over-molded heavy-duty plastic over a metal frame. It uses the same batteries and the same charging cradle and the same programming cable as the PD682. Its firmware is very similar to the PD362 as far as its menu system. But the thing is completely front panel programmable out of the box.
Ooh.
So completely. In
As
other words,
where a lot of radios have some semblance of front panel programming, but the big kicker is you can't add a talk group.
exactly. In other words, you have to use CPS to add a global talk group. And in the demo this morning, the Hytera guy, we went into contacts, and when you go to add a new contact on a regular Hytera radio, you can add a name for the contact and an ID, and that's it. There is a third option on this radio where it says type, and your two options are either private or global. What is also cool is it also has a direct dial mode where you can ad hoc change a talk group, and you push the shift key, which is the pound sign with an arrow, and it will shift between private and global. Plus, you can create your channel and everything, and it's fantastic. Couple of observations. It seems like it comes with a high capacity battery that is available for the 682 because it's much larger than the 682 battery. So I'm assuming that's the 3000 milliamp hour version. It is frequency locked between 420 and 450, so amateur only. Power output is 1 watt or 4 watts. And the only thing that I didn't know this at the time, the only thing that I looked at and kind of scratched my head at, because it's a solid, well-built radio. Everything seems quality. Instead of having like the really washed out color LCD, it has a black and white OLED that's really high contrast. The only thing that kind of made me scratch my head when I looked at the specs is apparently it's only capable of 256 channels, which is the same limitation that the PD362 has. But we had a long conversation with them, and they said that Hytera is very interested in knowing what amateurs want in the market, and are very interested in getting feedback. And this is their first go-around at this, and we're going to actually hopefully be getting those guys who are kind of the public face of Hytera and amateur on the show in a future episode.
And speaking of 250, I want some ham who complains about the fact that some radio only has 1,000 memories. I want
K6 RCT.
Yeah, I want one of them
He's our use
to
case.
name to me over the last 3 or 4 months what 270 different channels he has used on that radio.
So I'll go into that. So I have the ICOM ID51A that you can put a 32 gig SD card into, but you still can only have 1,000 or whatever memory channels. But once again, I was the same way. Why would I ever need more than really 10 channels?
Why would you ever need more than 64 kilobytes of memory?
Yeah. Well, obviously you can do a lot with 32 kilobytes. You can build a whole radio.
That's flash memory.
That's true.
Yeah. But so anyways, with the ID51, you go to this really cool website, you put in your zip code, and it downloads the whole repeater database around you. The ID51 has a GPS built in, and so now it does like the 5100 and 7100 where it auto selects the closest repeater based on my location. But I can't put the whole US repeater database. And so as somebody who travels a lot, it's really cool that I roll into a new town and it says, oh, hey, here's, the top, and you just turn your channel selector and you select down. But I don't think that with the way that the DMR, especially as big as Brandmeister is blowing up, that's really how it works. Really all I have to change on a Brandmeister repeater is my frequency and color code.
So
and I can go into a new repeater and go to all my same talk groups and everything just by looking up frequency and color code.
The only reason I can see why you need that many channels is since in most of these radios, the configuration of the channel includes the talk group.
Yeah.
And if, let's say you have one repeater in your area, you might have 16 channels, but it's the same repeater on every channel, but a different talk group.
But are you really talking about 16 different talk groups?
But no, I mean, for me personally, I talk on one,
Right.
and I listen on one or two others. And that's really it. So honestly, for me, I could get away with probably 16 channels full stop. But I could see where, like, some of the local guys in the Bay Area that have, like, a complete DMR code plug will have maybe 16 different zones. Each zone has 16 different channels, and each zone is one repeater with 16 different talk groups. So I can kind of see where it blows out, but to your point, which I believe is quite correct, at the end of the day, you only ever use a small handful of those combinations, maybe unless you're traveling around a lot.
Right, so it's kind of like it just, I feel like the people that are complaining about only 1,000 channels are people that just aren't putting any thought into it and want to
Haven't
load.
really used it.
Right, they
But
want to
what's
load the whole US database, but it's like, the last time I factory reset the radio in my truck was 2 years ago, and I've programmed 4 channels in it.
Yeah. Let me give you another use case on this one. So that channel, that radio in your truck, was that a commercial rig or a ham rig?
That's an 8900, so it's...
So that's a ham rig, so you have a VFO.
Yeah.
On the commercial rigs, we don't have a VFO. So
Right.
one of the other things that I've done, I do this on my D700 just because I've got the channels. But one of the other things is that I've put in the 2-meter call, the 440 call, I've put in all the simplex channels, I've put in all of the digital channels. And for FM, because these DMR radios, we call them DMR radios, but I'm pretty sure all of them will do
They're all
FM as
FM
well,
too, yeah.
right? So the reason I bought the Anytone instead of the MD380 is because it's dual band. The Anytone 868 is my primary HT, right? And I still need to be able to hit 2-meter repeaters in my area. And so that's why I spent the extra money for the Anytone to get the dual band radio. But that means that I've got a bunch of FM channels programmed into my thing as well. I could probably do just fine with 256. I'm not trying to say that, but that is a use case for having a bunch of channels.
But there's very few people that are going to do that use case. Like my high teras are one zone of FRS GMRS, so I can scan through and see if anybody's on there, because hey, it's a UHF receiver. And then I've got one zone for my local DMR repeaters, and then one zone for my hotspot. And in that one zone for my hotspot, I had my hotspot, which was the only channel, and then today I added y'all's hotspot, which was the second channel.
Yeah.
So in a radio that holds X amount of memories, I have less than 30.
And the thing is, being able to switch contacts helps. I mean, and that's something you don't see in the commercial. Because at the end of the day, the actual channel information of frequency, color code, time slot is independent of who you're trying to talk to. And I think that at the end of the day, that's one thing D-Star does have a little bit better, because where you're trying to go is separate of that. Whereas, like George, you pointed out, the talk group that you're going to is tied to the program channel. Now, again, this did accidentally just turn to DMR episode 4, so I'm gonna say
Break the cycle.
Put a pin in this one.
Well, no, I'm gonna take the final word on it, and the only thing I'm gonna say is I think the part that's disappointing is I have a device that fits in my pocket that can access the entirety of human knowledge, take higher quality video than almost any amateur camera available up until a couple years ago, has a built-in recording studio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it is, for me, especially given technology, it is just frustrating that somebody hands me a box and says you only get 1,000 of something. It doesn't matter why I want it. The technology, the technology. I mean, you were there when I railed at ICOM
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
When the 5100 came
When the
out.
5100 came out, and it's like you can only load 1,000 repeaters. I'm like, why don't you load the entire US database since you bothered? You can put a device that tells you where you are on the planet, but no, sorry, 1,000 channels. I mean, like, it just, to me, and maybe there's a good engineering reason for it, but no, there's
No.
not.
We're all shaking our heads at the table.
No.
So anyway, going back to Hamvention, I wanted to take a moment because, Gerald, you've been offered you. Last time you were here is when I first moved to Cincinnati. You and another friend came up. We made the mistake of staying down in Cincinnati and driving back and forth each day.
Yeah, that's cool. I wasn't driving. I was driving.
Yeah. And it was a comfy truck.
It was a very comfy truck.
But so, I mean, like, this is your first time in Xenia, and this is, you know, your third or fourth time at Hamvention in general. So, I mean, what have you been thinking since you've been here?
The facility, you know, I've read everything that, you know, everyone said online from all the different forums, just to kind of scope it out and see if I could get a lay of the land, where are the places to go and not to go, or campgrounds. I was kind of thinking about bringing my trailer up here to camp. And if you look at the Greene County Fairground, the inside of the racetrack is the, quote, campground. Or at least that's what it says on the map.
Not for Hamvention.
But not for Hamvention.
Not for Hamvention.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, you're like, there's plenty of RV space. And then you look at the Hamvention map and you find out that it's the fairground. But that's neither here nor there. I just think that it's cool that, because a lot of the Hamfests that I have gone to are also kind of, you know, RV fest.
Woodsy.
Yeah, well, yeah, woodsy, but you know, there's always RVs there and campers, and everybody kind of pulls up and does their thing. And I just thought it'd be kind of cool to be like on the fairgrounds. But the facilities are amazing. The barns are all new. They don't smell like barns. There's food everywhere. Myself and another guy went to go get lunch at 11:30, which was probably peak food time, and waited in line for 10 minutes, tops, got food and left.
I never waited in line. Like, if there was a line at one of the booths, I just keep walking. I'd eventually find a booth I could just walk up to and order something delicious.
Yeah. I'm not saying like the line was more like as peak
Yeah.
food time,
Yeah,
just
right.
stopped
Only
raining,
10 minutes.
everyone came out, and then you go out and they're selling bottles of water for $1. So for people that don't go to conventions or, you know,
Yeah.
expos and stuff, you know, it's easy to come across a bottle of water for $4 or $5.
So at Indianapolis 500, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they were selling bottles of water for $4 each.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bought 5 of them that day because that's how hot and sweaty I was.
Right. And here, you know, like no one's, you know, really ripping you off on any of that.
No.
The trash cans, there's a trash can right outside the main door by that general seating area. And I've thrown a couple bottles in there. Every time I've opened it, it's been completely empty.
Yeah,
And it's
have
in a very
been
high traffic
really,
area.
Really on top of keeping trash and pumping the porta potties, which was
Yeah.
the only downside about our location.
But the buildings are well laid out. You can get there. Of course, it rained. I've not been to Hamvention yet that hasn't rained for at least one. So Ohio's got that going for it. They're not in a drought by any means. I want to give, I guess, a shout out to the Laurel VEs.
Oh yeah, you have
That's-
some news.
Yeah, so one of my big things, I was going to test for extra. I thought how cool would it be to test for extra at Hamvention to say, you know, when I'm sitting around telling stories to my kids around the fire, tell them that I got my extra class ticket at
Back in
Hamvention.
2018.
2018, I just moved it to Xenia. You don't have any idea.
You weren't there.
And there used to be these things called forums, and everyone was talking about it.
And you got like a certificate of like,
Yeah, like the Laurel guys.
Well, hold on, you didn't share the news yet.
Yeah, so I
You're now
passed.
KF5JNU stroke AE.
AE, yes, I wouldn't be telling the story if I failed. We would just.
oh no, we would definitely be, we would be doing.
We're telling the story.
Yeah, he's extra general, ladies and gentlemen.
But so anyways, they had it at an offsite location, which was right across the street. Nothing inconvenient, no bus shuttles or anything. You walk right over there, in a church, and they had plenty of tables set up. They had snacks set up. You walk in. You know, I, like a bad ham, did not have my license on me. So I pulled it up on the ULS on my phone, and they said, yeah, that's fine. You know, wrote down my FRN. In fact, they printed out my license for me and put in my little folder.
Nice.
Gave me my test, took me back to the waiting area. I took my test, they took it off, they graded it, came back out,
What was your score?
minus 10.
Out of 50? Oh, that's not bad at all.
So,
That's 80%.
That's passing.
you know what that is?
That's
That's less than
passing.
13.
Yes.
And so, so then they called you up to the table, and I was kind of scoping out the table, and I could see that they had this little certificate that they would give to all the people that pass. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to, pull the Band-Aid off fast. And so I get up, and he opens my folder, and there's no certificate. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And, inside just flushed, just drained, beat. And he lifts up the cover page, and there's the certificate underneath it.
You had already gone through the first 3 stages of
So everything that was flushed just came right back out. And got excited. All happy about that and everything. And, they read it off. They said, do you want to go over the questions that you missed? And you know how much it cost? I don't know if anybody's done a Laurel.
Laurel, yeah. I'm a Laurel VE.
Zero.
Yeah.
Like that's done. Like if I have ever a chance to give back to that program, that was just amazing.
Become a
that-
VE.
Yeah, that here at Hamvention, they if they would have told me, yeah, it's $50 to take the test, I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
here I am, I'm ready to take the test, I'll do it. But yeah, the fact that they did it all volunteer, and it wasn't like 3 guys volunteering, there was a building full of volunteers.
So out of curiosity, because one of the things in Hera, the folks waiting to take the test, it was always a large line, like so large that it would have always dissuaded me from ever trying to test at Hamvention. What was the experience like with the wait times? Because let's be clear, it was not lightly attended today. It was, there were a lot of people at Hamvention.
Oh, there are definitely people taking their tests.
So, but what was the wait like? How crowded?
I didn't have any wait. I walked in, walked up to the desk, filled out my paperwork. As soon as I filled out my paperwork, they don't group you together and bring you all back in one group. You go back and they have the tables. It's fairly quiet back there. You sit down, you take your test. The lady hands you your test booklet, explains to you, the process and stuff. So you go, you sit down, you take your test. You get up, you hand it in, and then you go sit back out in the lobby. The whole time that I was sitting in the lobby waiting for the test to get graded, I don't think I ever saw the line get more than 2 or 3 people. And I probably sat in the lobby, for 10 or 15 minutes. Like, it was what it was, but there's at least 40 people in the lobby with me that were all also in. I think the biggest bottleneck was the guys that were going over the test and all that. It was just 2 guys, so they called 2 guys up. But I mean, really, I sat there and I got to talk to a bunch of ham radio guys, and of course I got the history of when code was a requirement. The guy had to ride a bus up to Detroit and take his FCC license. And
George, I didn't know you were upgrading today.
Yeah, those park gaps are really tough to tune.
Funny, I also got that story today.
smiled and nodded and said, really, that is interesting.
You're so nice.
But
Was it more of a reminiscent story, or
Oh,
was
it
it
was-
you youngins don't know how easy you have
No,
it
it
now?
was total reminiscence. If it
Okay.
had been the you youngins, I would've
Reminiscent
been a little-
stories I got no issues with. I'm happy
But
with
yeah,
that.
so the
Yeah.
guy, he was, I don't know how much older. He was, obviously old enough to have taken a novice on a bus up to Detroit, but he had a son who was an engineer who was there taking this test and went from tech to general.
Nice.
Just knocked it out. My favorite part though is I'm standing in line, and right behind me is a 10-year-old girl who used her school ID as her photo.
That's awesome.
And
that's great.
I said, please be going for tech. Please go for tech. She's going for tech. And I was like, whew, all right, we're good. And so she goes back, and I get done. I'm sitting there, and I see her walk out. And they called her up first, and because I guess less questions, it got graded faster or something. They call her up first, and she passes you. She gets all excited and stuff. And they say, do you want to go for your general? And of course, she's like, yes.
Yes,
Oh.
of course.
And so about this time is when I got called up, and I was like, man, do I stick around to see if she makes it? Like, this is, kind of a good thing. But it was, there was a good amount of kids that were there too.
Yeah.
It was all around like one of my most pleasant experiences. That's what Kenneth and I were talking about back in the booth was I'd worked myself up to just passing the test while I was here so much that I got done, and I was like, well,
Yeah,
'cause
like-
it opens at 10 o'clock.
Oh, the testing does?
Yeah, at 10. So I was there, 9:55, ready to go, and they were already set up, going. So
Yeah, because we talked quite a bit about some specific things you were looking at Hamvention, and after you passed, I'm like, that's awesome, let's go celebrate by buying a spectrum analyzer. And you're like,
do extras really need a spectrum analyzer? I mean,
we can see the spectrum with our eyes.
Little do you guys know that when you upgrade, they actually upgrade you.
You get reflashed.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, any other observations about, like, compared to the unique experience that was Hera?
yeah, no, I mean it's everything's good. Like I've read both positive and negative things about the move out to here, and I'm not really seeing any of the negative things. You know, people can say what they want. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I could probably try to find something to focus on to be like, I've got a 20-minute drive to, you know, the Hamvention. But no,
So
everything's great.
having never actually experienced Hera, what are the people complaining about?
Well, the facility is what's the word?
Condemnable.
Well,
I was trying to say the little.
What are they complaining about?
Yeah, what are they complaining about Xenia?
So I think coming out of last year, one of the biggest complaints was, so one thing to point out is, I haven't been out to the flea market, but what they did is that, so the flea market spaces are still in the infield of the track,
Yep.
but they brought in ground up asphalt
Yep.
pieces
Yeah.
with a roller to actually put in, like, I'll call them improved walkways
Yeah.
that are impervious to rain and therefore do not get muddy. So that was a big thing.
The walkways were pretty good, but as soon as it started raining, all the vendors threw blue tarps over their stuff so you couldn't see it anymore.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of when Mark and I were like, well, you know, there isn't much point in us being out here. And all the booths themselves actually did still get pretty soupy.
Yeah.
And so like there wasn't much shopping, but you weren't gonna get scooters stuck in the main
But
waterway.
after the rain was done, you could go back out there,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Whereas
Yeah.
last year when the rain, just turned everything to a
It
giant
just got
mud hole.
worse.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
condemned.
There's the one spot in there, that like electronic surplus tent, the big white tent
Yeah.
right there. Walking into it was a
Pretty
muddy kind of
soupy,
thing.
yeah.
Walking out was fine. If I just walked around the back, I would have been
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
That is really, and you know, me and another guy, we cruised the whole flea market, and that was like the one spot that I really kind of.
So that's greatly improved.
There's porta potties everywhere.
Yeah,
there's trash cans
There
everywhere.
were porta potties. I think the porta potties are the same that they were last year. I do think there were more trash receptacles this year. I think the only other thing people complained about were, in all fairness, Hera in most of its places was air conditioned. Granted, this weekend's not a big deal. The high today was like 74.
Oh my gosh, I was so terrified of the weather, and it has been,
Yeah.
I'll say delightful, coming from somebody from
It's a little
California.
steamy.
It was a little steamy, but it was cold steamy. It
At least-
wasn't hot steamy.
Yeah, at least the sun never came up. You don't say that. You folks from California never say, at least the sun wasn't out today.
A little girl once said that it'll come out tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So,
I mean, like what is like my biggest complaint was that like I'm used to events in California where we're real big on reuse your one water bottle. So we have like water monsters, which are these big 120-gallon potable water things with 6 spigots on the sides. It's like I've been carrying around water bottles all day trying to figure out where to refill them. And like
I did realize there are a couple water fountains, but I don't know that I would drink out of
there's
them.
a few, but it's like it's not like yeah, it's like plumbed into the building, and there isn't like oodles of
Yeah.
places to refill bottles like I'm used to. And I don't know if that's like a California thing or
It's a very California
Yeah.
where we have no water.
right.
thing.
It's like Washington does it as well. So like what are my complaints for the whole week? It's like, well, gosh, I had to go buy another $1 water bottle.
You know, we have a cooler full of those at the.
Well, yeah, like we also in the booth we enjoy that, but like I was on the far side of it.
Oh, right, yeah. So, I mean, other than that, people complained about traffic last year, and granted, we were
Okay,
blessed
yeah.
because we were vendors and didn't have to deal with it.
I actually did experience the shuttle.
Yeah, which I want you to talk, because like last year, the scuttlebutt was, on Friday, it was a disaster. And then Saturday, it was kind of okay. Then occasionally I'd find random people. Literally had one person tell me that he was stranded on a bus for like 2 hours. And then the thing is, the parking lot's a quarter mile away.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're stranded on a bus for 2 miles, or 2 hours, and it's a quarter,
Well, a few of the parking lots were. A few of them were like 10
There
or,
were some-
10 or
there were
15
some-
miles away. Like some of these were like
10 or 15?
Yeah.
Miles, not
Miles.
minutes?
You said miles.
Like because I was looking at some of them were pretty far out there. Like you're like, it's not at all in Xenia. Like some
Okay.
if I remember correctly, some of them, I don't know any of the towns around here, but like a few of the parking lots, I'm looking at like, really? Like that's like halfway to Dayton. Like they were pretty far out there. It's like I think you really didn't.
All right, then I'll-
right.
we'll
But yeah,
see
like for the high school, which is where I parked. Yeah, worst case, because like there was no info about when the shuttles were running, and so I was not exactly sure if at vendor arrival hours, if there'd really be shuttles running yet, and there kind of really wasn't. So I had to wait about 20 minutes. But I figured, yeah, if worst case, if there's not shuttles running yet, I can just hook it.
So overall, a good experience.
Oh, it was fantastic. It had the Ohio flair to it.
That's the Ohio flair.
So I go and I park at the high school, right? And I walk over and there's the first bus. There's a row of, there's probably 6 school buses in there. So we sit down and the bus driver's like, hey, I'm working today, and he was chatting to us. He's like, yeah, I have no idea what you guys are doing here. Like you guys are a bunch of amateur radio guys, whatever that means. But he's like, yeah, we're gonna wait until it gets half full, and at half full he takes off and goes over and drops us at the far side of the fairgrounds, which I don't know was a pretty decent quarter mile, or I don't know, I could have walked it. I think there's a lot of people that couldn't have walked it from there to the actual gate entrance. It was a pretty decent, across all the grass and stuff. So like we were on the far corner, which is where they were cycling the buses through. And at that point, they had like a vintage tractor club with people movers hitched to them. And so each one of them had these like enormous wooden wagons that you could see, I don't know, probably about 20, 25 people at it. And these
Please
were
tell me there were hay bales.
no, there was no hay bales in there, sadly. But like these are like, these are beautifully restored, like old Ford, 6 inline tractors. It was just, they were like, the tractors themselves are gorgeous. And we'd load in 25 to it. The guy would, rev the tractor and take off, and would drive this loop over to dump you like in the basketball court right next to the front gate. And so the shuttle experience involved walking 20 yards from the parking lot to the bus, involved 15 yards from the bus to the the tractor people mover, and then 30 yards from where they drop us off to where the line would be. And so particularly from an accommodations for who were, the demographic for this going to Hamvention, the shuttle experience, at least not before it started melting down halfway through the day, because I don't know how well that scaled post facto, as it got ramped up, but the system they got clearly was very well thought out.
So I'll say this, and then George, I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Last year, I felt like every time when we walked around, Hamvention was just over our shoulder waiting to make something go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This year, Hamvention feels like it's completely out of the way. Like the management of Hamvention is out of the way, and it's just there to be enjoyed. So what were your thoughts about day one?
Gosh, well, I had several things, just a few I want to mention. One is, one thing that I really enjoyed a lot, frankly, was you guys being in the booth with us, because you spent at least half your time in the booth doing stuff and jumping in and talking to people about the podcast, talking about our build project boards, talking about your personal experience in your projects that you work on in your areas of expertise, and that was a treat for me, because it's fun to see you guys get involved more with the community and all that. So that was a trip. I really enjoyed it. So, really thank you guys for that.
Yes.
You're very welcome. Kenneth and I also had the pleasure and the opportunity to go cover in the digital booth.
I noticed
for about
that.
an hour and a half while they went off to do a media event they were doing.
I was checking over there to see how things are going, and I saw you guys working it, and the Digiland folks are gone.
Yeah.
It's
So you
quite
spelled
a
them.
picture change.
Yeah, so that was all right. So I just really enjoyed you guys, frankly, and sitting back and watching you guys interact with other people and talk, and that was a gas.
Thank you.
The second thing is I learned something. Well, I'm about to learn something. So, which is Gerald, you worked on something for us at the last minute that just kind of blew my mind. So the other night, in one of the project boards that we showed off was our relay
The
board.
relay board.
And so it's you can hit the button and switch the coaxial relay or talk to it over a serial port. So the other evening, I was saying, it'd be really cool if we had like a web control panel. So you can bring up a web browser and hit a button, and that would send a command to the board. And so your response to that idea was like, no big deal.
Challenge accepted.
Like, exactly, like, you'll have it in the morning. And we did. And so like, we got there this morning, and you're like, okay, let me log in and I'll put in the code. And so we had a Raspberry Pi set up. Raspberry Pi talked to the hotspot. You logged in, you loaded the Python code that you wrote to launch a web browser. So we could stand there in the booth on our phones, pointing our phones to our Wi-Fi access point, talking to a Raspberry Pi, talking over a data radio to the relay board, and with a little graphical user interface, you press a button and it flips the relay. And there's a couple things I loved about that. First thing I loved about it was that the quintessential ham attitude, which is like presented with a technical challenge. It's like, sure, we could do that. I know about that, but we could do it. And so that's awesome. Second thing was I get to learn that, because I'm going to go back and look at your code and figure out what in the heck you did, because I have no bloody idea.
It's closed source.
It's I've got it.
Don't judge me.
What's so fun about
Admittedly,
it?
we've already looked at the source code.
So that's my favorite part was, we wanted to do the demo mode where it just flips a bunch of relays, makes a bunch of clickety clacks and stuff. And so I wrote it in there. I was like, that's definitely not enough clickety clacks. So a good programmer, a good object-oriented programmer would set up a function, and he'd call that function in number of times.
From a for loop that
from
would,
some sort of loop that says, hey, run this 4 times, and you don't write the code. Well, I was working on my lap in the booth while people were starting to show up, and I was like, or I could just copy and paste this line like 5 times. And so I
More
did
like
that.
12, but yes.
Or 12.
Yeah.
And it's,
No, see, you have to say you optimized it by unrolling the loop. That's a
There you
very,
go. To make it more understandable.
optimized 4 times.
Yeah, well, no, you unroll the loop so that you can do it faster in exchange for more code. It's actually a legitimate optimization technique.
so Smitty's trying to make it sound better than
Yes,
what it
exactly.
really
I'm
was.
trying to save you
Just
here.
said to get her done.
So, but on top of that, I added a comment, and I just said, don't judge me. Because I knew someone's going to look at it and be like, what? Oh, come on, he should have added a for loop. And like in my mind, yes, I should have. So I go out to, do my test thing, and I come back, and the first thing Smitty says is, I don't judge you.
Or at least not your code. So, but this is so cool because not only did you just do it, but so I take a lot of pride in building projects, right? So I like building the board, and it's really cool and all that. And I have no idea how to do what you did. And so, everybody knows how to do something, but they're like fairly ignorant about something else. And so what I love about the hobby is I get to hang with smart guys who I can learn stuff from.
And me.
And even you. And and so I definitely want to go back and decode the code. One other little side on that thing. So halfway through the day, I bumped the AC adapter, and the demo's not working anymore. And Gerald, you're not there. So well, this is bad. And so I'm talking to Mark like, oh man, the thing's not working. And you're like, let me log in. So here's the guy who doesn't even know what it is or what it does or how it
Nothing
works.
about it.
It's like, let me do it. And so you jump in there and you log in and you're like, oh, here's the code.
He's logging in on his phone. Like this,
Yes.
on his phone,
yes.
on his cell phone.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
Well, it's a Raspberry Pi, it's a Linux box. There's a thing called history. So I just look at what Gerald did, and I'm like, oh, Vim, demo1.py. Okay, well, that must be the program that he's running. Where's the file? There it is. Hey, look at the file. How did he run it? Oh, there's a screen command. Okay, so he must have launched a screen. Like, I'm a system administrator. This is what I do.
I get this as your profession.
Yeah.
And for the rest of us, it's a bit of black magic, but it's just.
Comes from the guy who has a board that switches one radio into 4 antennas by
Yeah.
pressing a button.
So this is the point, right?
Exactly.
This is exactly the point. So go ahead, finish your point.
The point is that I love this stuff because no matter what you're really learning other stuff from other people.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
And it really does. I mean, and so what's also special is if it's okay with you, at some point we're going to put that Python code out.
With the proper for loop.
With the proper
comments.
We'll let you clean it up first. But that way, people can learn how to do that. Because this Python thing, what kills me is not being a Linux programmer. I know there's like 30 lines of code out there that'll do exactly what I want, but I can't find it.
Well,
And,
so, yeah.
but you knew how to cobble that together and make it work.
But it's like I told, if you had asked me this 3 or 4 days ago, I would have been way more over my head. I just happened a couple days ago to come across a framework called Dash, written by the guys behind Plotty, and it combines all this React JS and all that stuff to where I know.
The look on Jordan's face as he knows none of those terms.
JS, I got JS. Keep going.
Right. Well, I know.
The turbo infrobulator, or what's that video?
Turbo vocabulary.
Yes, that one.
Yes,
That's what you just said to George.
Thank you.
It's like the turbo encabulator.
All you heard was blah, 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 ginger. I didn't hear it.
So the thing is now, instead of having to be like this full stack web designer, you just take your Python code that you already know, and you just add a couple really weird looking callbacks in it. But hey, they're well documented. There's tons of, Stack Overflow articles and stuff like that. They have an amazing wiki write-up and stuff. And it goes along with the whole like open source kind of, builder community of, I'm not going to give you your project, but here are all the Lego building blocks of how to make your project happen.
But the beauty of this, though, is it's a complete example, right? This is not just like fragments here, but here's a little standalone app to do this. And, we all learn, especially in software, we all learn by like ripping off someone else's code and then either fixing it or just using it.
That's exactly how Stack Overflow is born.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's learning by ripping off other people's code. And it works great.
Give me the copy paste incantation to move forward.
So my main comment I really want to make is the combination of getting together with you guys, and we all live in different parts of the country for the most part. I mean, we live in the valley.
We never see each other.
But we never see each other. But otherwise we're hundreds of miles apart, and so it's fun to get together live and in person. And back to the DMR topic, we're not going into another hour on that.
DMR episode number 5.
But I know now, as when I go rip off your code and start trying to understand it, I'm going to run into some like cryptic thing I don't get. So I'll find you on the talk group, and I'll be able to say, hey Gerald, like what the heck does line 20 mean?
Right. And what I found out about the 31075 group is there's this one guy that knows everything there is to know. What is his call sign? He's like
that is Mike. KI8R, and he actually came by the booth.
Oh, yes, he
today.
did.
And I was telling him, I said, it's funny you came up at dinner last night because Gerald was complimenting you on how the one night that you and I were chatting, he popped up, he's like, oh, here are the 42 other things you can do with an open spot that you didn't know.
Right, you know what? DMR episode 5, you can change the profiles by just keying it up on a different talk group. So you can set all these different profiles for, different, if you want to go between Mark and Brandmeister, you just key it up. And, it's that community of people that are so well knowledgeable in their areas, and they're willing to help you.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's really the essence of it. And I think you see that in every aspect of F4 Days in May. We see, you see it there. You see it in people who want to build stuff. They combine. I mean, that's just sort of the thing, right? That's the spirit of it.
Elmers, right? I mean, that's what we call them in Ham Radio. They're mentors, teachers. I mean, they're
Glue makers.
Glue makers.
Elmers.
Oh gosh. And like every different hobby has a different name for them, but it's the same thing. They are the people that know something you don't. I won't even say know more than you do, because you can still be Elmered by somebody who knows less than you do. They just happen to know the one thing that you need to know that you don't yet.
When we're talking about our automated systems, your AS.
Autonomous system. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where like, hey, this can turn into the next 5 hours of discussion.
Yeah.
Talking about this, even though it's such a high level, having people that understand it at such an in-depth view, you can bring it down to other people's level and really.
Yeah, that was at dinner tonight. We started getting into how the internet works. So we very deliberately wait, hold up.
Yeah.
This conversation just needs to not happen tonight.
Not in a noisy restaurant anyway. This is a very deep, dark hole that I'm happy to go into in the proper context.
This is 5 whiteboards full of information.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, if we're lucky, with erasers. Yes.
But like one piece of advice I like to give a lot of people is that people kind of get this idea when we talk about Elmers so much that like you get assigned an Elmer or you need to go find an Elmer and there's some knighting ceremony or something for the Elmers. And that's not how it works. Like it really, like you literally just ask someone a question and they answer it.
That's it.
And then in some context, they're kind of an Elmer. Like, I'd be a little weirded out if someone started referring to me as their Elmer. Like, that just seems a little odd.
No, I feel the same way, because you and I are pretty close in age, and there would be
younger.
They're
He is younger.
Yeah, right.
But
No longer the youngest
But you know,
person.
the age, I mean, the previous conversation, I mean, it's flipped around. So like on this, figuring out this web thing, man, like you're my Elmer trying to figure that
Right,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's
and
a
I
lot
love that.
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of people
great.
in the podcast that are very knowledgeable about their subject, but because they didn't drive to Detroit in a bus and take, their code test, how could they possibly be an Elmer? They just got their tech ticket last year.
God, I hate that attitude.
Yeah.
I hate that attitude so bad.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm not.
Yeah, I know you're not. I know you're not. I know you're
But
not.
I'm saying that, there's kind of this idea that, well, you haven't been doing this. One of the guys in the testing session today walked in, he was an older gentleman, walked in, no license, walked out extra.
Yeah.
And I didn't see what he had on his shirt. It was something FAA, like some sort of
Okay,
FAA
yeah.
kind of thing. And the examiner was like, oh, well, that's why, it makes sense. So like we all have, our walks. There was, I don't know if Linode, you're familiar with Linode.
Yeah.
It's a virtual private server hosting company, really big company. One of the guys at the testing session was wearing a shirt there. And I said, hey, are you from Linode? I said, yeah, I do this. This guy's probably really smart and really, when it comes to the digital modes and all this stuff, can be a huge asset.
And we need that so much. I mean,
Right.
that, especially if you look at ham radio in the future, in the future, we're going to, I personally believe, we're going to have all the classic nostalgic ham radio that we love, like 40 meter CW. That's not going to go away.
That's never going
It's
away.
never
No,
going
it
away.
should, no, but your 40 meter CW is happening on an Arduino.
Well, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
right,
that, yeah.
But then you're gonna also have all of the sort of forward-looking SDR stuff, Linux stuff, networking stuff, leveraging the internet. So it's the happy blend of like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is where
Yeah.
we're quite blessed with this fabulous array of things that is in some cases 100 years old and in some cases yet to be born around the corner that we're going to invent.
Yeah.
So I think. There's just so much on the horizon that it's just, we just don't have enough time personally to like enjoy all the things that we can do.
But we get to pick and choose the things that are the most enjoyable to us.
Right.
So I was listening to the ARRL News podcast on my way up here, actually, just recently, and they were talking about the grid chase, which I think the grid chase contest is a bit of a stretch, honestly, but they're at least using it as an opportunity to collect statistics of operating whatnot.
Can you go into the grid chase contest?
What's that?
Can you go into
what is it?
grid
Oh,
chase-
I'm sorry, the grid chase contest. So National Parks on the Air was such an amazing success with the ARRL that they wanted to come up with something similar to it. And so the National Parks on the Air was in 2016. I don't think they did anything for 2017, but 2018, the whole idea is that they're the grid chase. So any QSO you do, any band, any mode, it doesn't matter, counts as a contact in this contest that runs all year, and they count statistics every month. And the idea is you want to try and talk to as many different Maidenhead grid squares as possible. Any band all the way up through microwave and UHF and VHF and all that. So it's not just an HF band thing, but it also includes the HF bands. And it's just get on the air,
It's
operate.
also the theme for this year's field day.
The grid chase? Yeah. And so, but the ARRL has been publishing monthly statistics because every month they reset all the counters and you start over. And so it's every month you have this kind of fresh contest of what's going on. And in, I guess it would be April because we're at the beginning of May now. In the month of April, FT8 had more contacts logged than both single sideband and CW. I don't think it was more than both of them combined, but it was definitely more than either of them. It was close to half of the total number of contacts that they did. And so, I mean, FT8 has taken the HF bands by freaking storm. It's insane. I still haven't played with it yet.
Neither have I.
I need to get on that because I'm way behind the curve on this one.
Well, or you don't. Like, I'm not.
No, I want to.
Yeah,
I-
like you want, right? But at the same time, it's like like I'm not an HF at all. It doesn't interest me that much, and so yeah, like I'm glad that other people enjoy FT8. not my thing.
Yeah, you're just trying to talk me into buying a 40-meter hex beam.
Oh, you absolutely need a 40-meter hex
I do
beam.
need a
Yeah,
40
you
meter
You know,
hex
actually, if you get that hex beam, George can put his flex radio there, and then we can all just use that.
That's right. Well,
Two element.
You don't want to operate out of his
No,
house.
not out of my house. We'll talk about that later.
Well, we have talked about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going on hour 3 here, so I'm gonna
Holy
bring it
crap, are
back,
we really?
and then we actually, we're gonna be sharing with you the 2 presentations from FDIM at the end of this, one by Hans Summers and one by Dr. Jack Purdom. Just real quickly, going around the table, are you coming back? And then, what is something that you hope to leave with? Smitty.
Am I coming back? I will definitely come back at some point. I don't know whether it'll be next year, because there are some family considerations there that I need to address. As well as I don't want to completely ignore Maker Faire. So I'm thinking it might be an every other year swapping back and forth between Maker Faire and Hamvention for me. Having said that, I do want to do something specific at Hamvention. So I haven't actually had a chance to talk about my experience. I don't know if we want to take the time on that or
I
not.
thought we did.
No, because I kicked it over to Kenneth to start out with.
You have 30 seconds.
I got 30 seconds.
You're allowed to speak in 3-word sentences, and go.
And in 3 hours.
Hamvention is cool. You should come. Did I get it?
That'll work.
That'll work. So actually, no, there is one point that I actually wanted to bring up specifically. That there are a lot of vendors selling final products, which is awesome because you get to go and talk to the manufacturers of those products and learn about them and hands-on try them out and that kind of stuff. That's really cool. There are also a lot of vendors that sell bits and parts and Anderson power poles and RF connectors and cables and heat shrink and all the things that you need to put your stuff together. There is a gaping void of stuff in the middle of here's a complete kit of all the parts that you can take home and assemble. Hans is here with his kits. We have partial kits with our circuit boards and things, and I think there's 1 or 2 other vendors that are selling things in kit form, but that seems like a gaping void. How busy our table has been even with partial kits and how busy Hans has been with his kit, I think speaks to how hungry this convention is for that kind of product. I have an idea for a product that would be good for this kind of convention that I want to work on over the next year, possibly 2 years, we'll see. And I'm going to need y'all's help testing it. We'll talk more offline, but so I'm going to tease the audience right now that I want to come back to Hamvention either next year or the year after with a kit to sell. And I will try to keep it under $100. So it's something that is, here are a bunch of 20s, some number of 20s to throw down on the table and make happen. But it is something that will be useful, that will be buildable by beginners. It's not going to require a whole lot of expertise. It will be useful. It does something. It's not just blinky lights. And no offense, but it's not just a dummy load, right? It's something that actually provides functionality.
Offense taken.
Offense taken. But it will have a dummy load in it. So that's actually
It was a dummy load with blinky lights.
that's
It
true. It was a
did have an
Smarty
LED,
load.
yeah.
I want to build a Smarty
All
load.
right, so Kenneth,
Well,
Those were only 3-word sentences, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. You were fine, Mark.
so just, do you need a reminder what we were talking about, or do you also want to?
there was 2 questions. One was what I wanted to take away from it, and the other one was
Are you coming back?
am I coming back? I'm glad that I've checked it off. I've checked it off the list of experiences I've had in my life, right? Like it has been a very enjoyable day. Tomorrow is going to be another enjoyable day. Even at Maker Faire, I've never worked a booth that has been double stacked. People wanting to talk to us all day. All day. But I think it was your wife that made the comment yesterday of like, well, Kenneth, aren't you having a great time? Like you're with your people. I
think she just called you a nerd.
Well, yeah. Like the thing is, like I don't think of myself as an amateur radio guy as much as I think myself as a maker and a tinker and an
autonomous system operator.
Well, the workbench thing that we'll get into the next time we have a podcast with a tough time. But it's like I was sitting there, I was thinking about it for a second. I'm like, you know, I kind of don't feel like I'm with my people because, like, there is definitely a percentage of people here that are makers and the people that want to do the hands-on stuff with us. But there was, there was other people that were not, right? Everyone was there to do their own thing, and they had all their niches. And comparing this to Maker Faire, where Maker Faire is the Venn diagram of people at Maker Faire that were there for the same reason as I was much bigger. And it's hard to compete between the two of them when the Venn diagram overlapped a little bit more at Maker Faire. The travel expenses to Maker Faire are
A lot less.
a fraction, right? I mean, like, it's like we're literally talking about a 30-mile drive versus more than $1,000 for the airplane.
Try living in Oklahoma.
Yeah, right. So like, I feel bad for people that like
It's the reverse problem that I would have if I wanted to go to Maker.
exactly
Maker
right. Like
Faire.
it's a real wake up call. Like everyone else is paying these sorts of prices to get out to Maker Faire, and admittedly, I'm just spoiled living in the Bay Area and getting to enjoy. I'll show up Saturday. Maybe I won't show up Sunday. Will I come back? I like coming into it. I kind of had the plan of doing the every other thing because I think it's always good to skip a year on stuff so that it doesn't seem exactly the same as the year before. Am I going to come back in 2 years? Man, I'm not convinced. I don't know. Like I'm gonna have to see in a year and a half because it's like it is Hamvention really kind of met my expectations, and the expectations were there's going to be some undercurrent of makers in it, but there's going to be a lot of other stuff going on too. So I mean, if it wasn't the same weekend as Maker Faire, oh yeah, absolutely, I would definitely be coming. The fact that it's the same weekend as the summit of all of my friends that aren't here, it's a tough act to justify splitting the time between them.
So to my point, the point that I made earlier is that I want to try and bring more of a maker element.
Right, because it's like, because as an example, I'm used to walking around at Maker Faire and seeing 4 folding tables set up with 20 soldering stations at it. I saw no active soldering stations.
There actually was a section
Really?
in one of the smaller rooms. It's like a kids assembly area, but they had a bunch of soldering stations.
Okay, I stand corrected, right? But like, so that sort of stuff. Like, if there's more of that sort of stuff, but at that point, it's like, at what point are we just trying to turn Hamvention into Maker Faire? And it's like, I already go to Maker Faire. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not going to say emphatically that, I'm definitely coming back. But I absolutely enjoyed it. And I want to spend more time.
It's not over. You still got like a day and a half.
Yeah, so I mean, a day and a half. Like, well, forget this. I'm out of here. No. So I mean, so and if it really is just I come every other year just to hang out and with the small fraction of the people here that are on my wavelength, like that in itself is valid.
So what are you taking home with you?
I haven't really decided yet. Like this.
Could be philosophical, or I am buying besides a Zoom spot.
Yeah, so the Zoom spot, I think it was my big purchase, right? Because it's like, I had to get a DMR HT to be at all functional this weekend. The Zoom spot, it really makes that more useful for me in my apartment. So I am kind of excited to finally get it a DMR. Because like, honestly, I haven't really operated as an amateur now in a long time. Like I have fallen into the trap of, I do a lot of APRS, like protocol engineering and coding, and I do a lot of event operating. But even for my events, I'm not even on amateur radio anymore. I'm all Part 90 commercial over there. And so it's going to be kind of interesting to get back into amateur radio again. Because like, for however active I am, I don't actually key up a radio much. But
It's all about community, and 31075 has turned into that community.
right, and so that's what I'm really excited about. Is the community on 31075. So I'm really interested to see how that plays. But yeah, like, so I'm going to take the Zoom spot home. I have a few other little knickknacks. Despite Mark offering to let me load stuff into his Prius, I'm trying to keep it to stuff that I just.
There's a day and a half left.
I can fit that Motorola repeater cabinet from the flea market in there.
Boy. I'm really trying to limit myself on the damage here.
I'd just like to point out that turnabout is fair play.
Yeah, touche. But I mean, as far as what I'm taking out of it philosophically, I'm still in information overload at this point, right? As I'm a day and a half in, I've got another day and a half, it's gonna be 5, 6, 7 days before I really know how I felt about it.
You know, it's funny, the first time that I came here, when I left, I was like, I'm glad I came. I'm good.
And
And then literally, it was like the first time I ate sushi. Literally, a couple days later, I'm like, I can't wait to go back. But
that describes
do
it.
you.
Yeah, that describes it. Right.
so you do you. Gerald,
Yes.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll be back.
No, yeah, and traveling for work all the time definitely, puts a hurting on it. I was on the road for a month before I came out here. It was a 3-hour cruise that turned into a month-long trip. So I'd already booked all my tickets and stuff, and when we got extended and all that, I didn't want to, cancel. So we came out here. But even with that, like I wanted to see what Xena was about. It's lived up to expectations. It kind of seems weird. I don't know if it's, I was thinking about it, I'm going on 10 years in my career in amateur radio right now. And I've got, a nice ham shack. I've got the stuff that, I lusted over for all of those years. And so it's not that I'm really out here like hunting that deal for that, ICOM 706 or hunting that deal for, a tube for my amplifier or something. I've just kind of been looking at unique stuff that would kind of be cool, kind of not, like the little diamond antenna that we talked about today.
Yeah.
That would have, if they would have had that would have been a cool, take home. The Digilant tool is definitely something that I'd like to take home. That's, I came out with the idea of buying a scope. I went to the Siglent booth, and they're definitely more scope for the money than I was thinking, because half the stuff he was telling me it would do, I have no idea how I'd ever use. And I'm like, yeah, man, I just kind of need to measure voltage and see when stuff rises. Like, so this analog discovery probably won't work for me. But yeah, that's probably it. Maybe go home with a Zoom spot, but I'll definitely be back to Hamvention, before it's all said and done. That's for sure. If it's next year, hopefully. If not, then the year after for sure. I took a year break, and so it was kind of, 2-year break from my last Hamvention to this Hamvention, and it was definitely, like you're saying with your sushi thing, like you kind of get antsy for it, and you know that you're going to be meeting up with all your friends. I ran into one of our friends that we knew back in Virginia.
Yep.
And just recognized I haven't seen him in 4 years, and immediately picked up on him and even remembered his call sign and everything. And so that kind of camaraderie is really cool when you come out here. So
yeah, Kenneth was talking about that with Maker Faire, right? That's kind of like the annual meetup of that particular circle of friends that he goes to. And it's why it's hard for him to commit to coming back to here, but it sounds like this is that circle of friends for you guys. And I can easily see me forming that circle in both places.
yeah, and
I just realized you're not wearing your kilt anymore, thankfully.
Given how I'm standing, yes. No, I am not. I took the kilt off when we came back from dinner.
now I think you Bay Area guys are definitely spoiled in the fact of what you have access to.
Oh yeah.
Just fries. If we had a Fry's anywhere else in the country, I would be happy.
I've got Micro Center.
Micro Center
Which
is
is
close,
pretty
but
close.
I think Fry's beats Micro Center.
They've upped their game in the Maker front.
But yeah, I mean, the technology, even anytime I get to travel out to California and turn on my, amateur radio, there's always somebody on a repeater. What's the name of the big system that y'all have out there?
The Papa system.
The Papa system, yeah. That's just, not only just an amazing, just have somebody to talk to, but the knowledge level of guys that are on there is amazing. So yeah, you guys are definitely lucky out there.
Yeah, and I'm certainly going to go back and appreciate the conferences. It's because I just kind of, my conference experience always was, well, you go to Maker Faire, you drive over to San Mateo. You go to the Embedded Systems Conference, you drive over to San Jose. You go to SemiCon, you drive up, you catch a BART up to San Francisco.
Oh man, I gotta take a day trip out to Vegas to go to DEF CON.
All right, and it's like that was the thing. It's I can still remember as a college student that other conferences just weren't an option because I couldn't afford an airplane ticket. And even now I'm looking at an airplane ticket. That's as expensive as the
Nobody
conference.
takes an airplane to go to a conference.
Yeah,
Why'd you do
so So, you know, it's,
No, obviously, it's more financially feasible to take 8 days off of vacation each way and drive it.
And then pay for meals for all that.
Yeah, and hotel and gas and.
I have a new appreciation for it, right? So I'm a little embarrassed.
That's okay. So from both of us, sincerely, we very much appreciate it. Like this is awesome. I mean, the three of you have been instrumental in our last couple of years, and we really appreciate that. And getting to actually meet you in person has been quite a treat. That's been my favorite part, spending time with listeners. And actually, by the way, like I stepped out for a minute and I checked, we were two people away from having 600 followers on Twitter, so hopefully we've crossed that now. I just want to thank you guys. Hamvention so far has been incredible. Big thanks to the Darrow folks, because anything that was a problem last year, they just made it go away.
Yeah, I haven't seen any problems.
That's it. I think, George, you want to take us out?
By
take us out, I mean punch us all in the face so we stop talking.
I'd be the first one to do that. Based on the comments in the chat here, we should have done this a while ago, but
What, ended or?
Yeah, we should have pulled the cork about an hour ago, but we're on a roll. So
No, because I learned today there are plenty of people that
Yeah, there
are
are
be
people
happy.
who are
and
very-
they want
They're
that's
yelling
perhaps true.
yelling at their radios and phones right now.
please,
saying,
I want another hour.
Why are you stopping? I'll tell you why we're stopping, because we all mostly have to be up in approximately 5 hours in
Yeah.
order to get a shower in and meet back up for breakfast.
I say early breakfast. Let's just go.
Right now?
Yeah.
And just wait at the gate.
I'm
Can
there.
we shower first?
Well, it's Hamvention.
It's going to rain again.
It's going to rain. So as I said before, and I echo your comments, so it was great spending time with you guys, and I'm super appreciative of everybody that comes by the booth, and that is very energizing. I mean, it's really, it's great when you have a passion for something, and then you find other people that have a passion for the same thing or kind of similar things, and in the world we live in is remarkable, because we have this ability to find other people with the same interests and learn from them. So that's what's really great. So I'm having a great time. As far as what I'm taking home, I have no idea. Except the radio. I bought the radio you bought.
You're taking it, and you got a Zoom spot.
I got a Zoom spot.
And you're buying a Flex tomorrow. Okay.
With the maestro.
Yeah, with the
Maestro. Yeah, let's get that.
So what's
started.
funny, are you going to buy one that has the front panel on it also?
No.
So you put
No,
the
that's
Maestro
ostentatious.
in the living room?
No, I don't want to put on Air's Jeremy. Like if I get a Flex radio, I'm just getting the Maestro. I'm not getting the thing with the face panel on it. That's just too
But
much.
what if you're trying to operate it from the rack?
Yeah. What if
I'm just gonna carry the control.
What if you were operating in the garage one day? Because you imagine standing at your workbench in the garage with the Maestro sitting there, and then you go inside and you said, "Hey, I'm done working," and you just walk into your shack,
Right.
and you're like, "Well, crap, I can't operate the radio."
I'll have my iPad. I can operate from that.
That's true. Touche.
There you go.
All right,
But your iPad battery's dead. This is for the guy mowing his yard right now. He's saying, keep it up.
Keep going, keep going. There's one more acre, only one more acre to go.
All right, so in order to give you guys an extra hour, we're going to ask Kenneth to read part 97 verbatim.
Yep. That actually came up yesterday. We were talking about how everyone should sit down and read part 97.
All right, so thank you all very much, listeners. We would not, most importantly, we would not be here at 2 years-ish, a little less than 2 years, if it weren't for you. And you guys, George, okay, so fun fact. We accidentally recorded 15, 20 minutes of the show, only to realize that I didn't hit the record button. But in that part, George, you made the point to say, and I swear this is the last thing, in years past, we get out and we get interviews. We tried to do that today, and it just wasn't possible. Going to the bathroom was a challenge at some point, because we were so inundated with folks wanting to come and talk to us, tell us they think what we're doing is good, they believe in our mission, asking questions about our boards and who we are, and just thanking us and telling us that 4-hour episodes are preferable. Universally 4-hour episodes. So, without further ado, we are here to give you exactly what you've asked for, which was what I'm sure is going to wind up being a 4.5 or 5-hour episode.
On DMR.
On DMR.
On DMR.
And so here's celebrating the first 50, and here's to the next 50.
Here.
So,
Cheers.
73.
Clink the
73.
plastic bottles.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. All right. Thank you all for listening. We will be back with the rest of our Hamvention content after a word from our sponsors.
Oh, shit. Forgot to put the SD card in it.
No, it's worse than that. The SD card is 4 years old and it just,
Just
simulates
yeah.
right and it just shit the bed. Oh. Bye, Internet.
That's okay, my live stream is used to me cussing, so it's okay. Ah.
That one's yours.
Oh, so, good story. And we-
Wait, wait, wait,
we
wait,
can
wait,
even
wait,
go-
wait, wait, hold on. Stream is still going. Wow, it's like double rainbow. What does it mean?
Yeah, I feel bad for totally, completely ignoring the chat.
Well, George was in theory paying attention, wasn't he?
The guy comes in and he says, I'm setting up this multimedia.
What am I doing?
Conference they're doing in the
Okay.
ballroom.
Thanks for watching, everybody. This episode will be posted probably Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Normal posting time?
Normal,
So-
Same bat time.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you very much for watching, and be good humans.
73s, y'all.
73 is y'all.
10-4
Really?
over and out.
Really?
Audio.
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 Hello,